My intro didn't work. Look, see how close you are to me? I can't fix it. I keep trying to scoot you over. The camera's not right. Hi, guys. Welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. There we go. Let's hope that doesn't fall over. Today is the 24th of April. I know what month it is. Do you?
I'm wearing yellow on my hat and blue shirt.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of matching. This is blue. You can't see it. There you go. Now you can kind of see it.
No, I can't. It's the same color as this, but why is it?
It's
Mine's just a little bit lighter.
It's not the same color.
It's about the same color blue.
It's not anywhere close to the same color.
Hey. It's like a wash blue.
We're sisters. Have you ever seen our show before? We're so glad you're here.
How you doing?
We talk about the
news. And I don't even know why anybody would watch past the first 10 seconds. But you know what? I see some people when they're starting their show, they're waiting for people to show up. They're scrolling through their phone. They don't even make chitter chat. At least we make chitter chat.
You just made that word. You just made up that phrase, chitter chat. I'm like anybody. My chair is chitter chatting down. It's going down.
I'm pretty sure. Shrunk. I'm pretty sure it's a thing.
Oh my goodness!
So I'll tell you a little bit about our grass is growing in the back. Finally, praise the Lord. I got grass in the front. As you all know, we have crazy problems with our backyard flooding because of our neighbors, and they built this house and blah blah blah, and everything floods our backyard. Well, I finally got some grass growing again. Hopefully we're going to get our little ditch put in, little French drain. No, we're not going to make our neighbors do it. We're going to do it. I can't wait to do that. Sometime this week we're going to be butchering a pig. Poor Benny.
Poor Benny. No. This is my chair just keeps going down. It is part of the cycle of life. It is his time. He is ready.
We're just gonna start looking for a boar because you guys know that we had to Malachi tore his ACL, and we had the vet out, and we tried for a year and a half or 2 years to get him back.
A year.
And we were able to have piglets the year before last, but we had a few last year and no piglets this year. And I'm getting messages because people want to, homestead. People want piglets, and so we need a boar now. Right. So we got to figure out how we're going to do that. Ready. We're looking. We're just going to start looking for calls for coonies now. And that's just the way life goes. I got some stuff planted. I got some potatoes planted out there. I got a chicken get some of my lettuce. But good news is that I had planted lettuce, carrots, and beets, and she ate the tops of the lettuce and beets, but I have carrots coming up because they take longer to germinate. I watched a little video of a gal who puts a board on top of her carrot seeds, and those all germinate, whereas carrots are notorious for washing away and not germinating because they
dry. They dry out. I saw that.
And I never even thought about putting a big board over my carrot seeds, but I'm going to do that from now on. I'm actually, I don't know, it's pretty late now, but for the fall, or we're having a really late spring. We haven't even had any temperatures in the 80s yet. It was kind of abnormal.
It's interesting because it was really, really warm for a while, abnormally warm, and now it kind of like switched, flip-flopped, which is not good for like
So, thinking about abnormal numbent how many of you know that West Texas oil was it went down to negative 42 and finished at negative 37? That, if you look at my chart behind Michelle's head, has never happened ever. What does that mean? It doesn't. It's trading at an.
Let me make it darker.
Okay.
There now they can't. They can't see us, but now they can see the chart.
Perfect. This is the past since 1975. That's more helpful. What's crazy about this is that you don't trade at negative. What happens is you have to pay someone to take it, because this is, and it is kind of confusing. These oil speculators, it's kind of a gamble. Happened.
They wear suits. They can't move oil.
What does that mean?
And
it doesn't. It's trading. Actually, plenty of people they buy it and then they sell it to people who have places to actually put it. Because regardless of what many people think in this world, your hands have to move a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, the little computer things, there's actually legit people that have to do work. Okay, gasoline is made from oil, and it all has to go from station to station.
Right.
So with oil barrels and oil containers almost at capacity, they had to move it. The contract was up. The contract was up. You had to move it.
And this happens so often. I don't know if it's quarterly, because I think the next one's in July. The next one that's up, where they will have to
find somebody to move it. And God couldn't find somebody to move it. I think it wasn't.
I bet. Hang on, the whole time I haven't even had the chat up. I'm hoping there wasn't anything in the background going. Sorry.
I think it was 1,000 barrels, and so somebody lost, that amount of money. So it's not huge, right? But still, it's kind of crazy. So I brought up the chart so you could see just the crazy prices of oil at around 2008-ish. It was up at $140 a barrel. And then under Trump, you'll notice since his election, it's been pretty steady, around 60 to 80, 70. Gas price under Trump's been pretty good. Cost of oil, but it's one of those things. I'm going to go ahead and read this article. The formerly unthinkable drop in oil prices below zero on Monday is still reverberating throughout.
Not just below zero, though, like well below zero.
People said, "Oh my gosh, it was going to 10. Oh my gosh, it's $1. Oh my gosh, it's zero. Oh my, what's negative?" Like, it's hard to wrap your brain around. Through financial markets as supply overwhelms demand, destroyed by the coronavirus pandemic, forcing some energy companies, and then Saudi Arabia is, trying to truck over oil as well. I think Trump has it under control, but whatever under control means. Forcing some energy companies into possible bankruptcy as storage reaches maximum capacity. Indeed, the now defunct May West Texas Intermediate crude, which expired on Tuesday, plunged into negative territory to start the week in a history-making event that saw the front month contract at the time settle at negative $36.63 a barrel before recovering some of that in the following session. That jaunt into negative territory had never happened before that period, and although the oil market was seeing some traction higher on Wednesday, with the current front month and most active West Texas Intermediate crude for June delivery plus 4%, gaining $2.21 or 19% to settle at $13.78 a barrel. $13. Woo! On the New York Mercantile Exchange, still about the lowest level since the 1990s. Researchers at the Deutsche Bank, why do I say that douche?
Because you just want to
the Deutsche Bank thought it would be interesting to look at oil prices over the past 150 years. Strategist Jim Reed of the Deutsche Bank. No, and Nick Burns did so with straightforward charts published April 22nd that shows both the nominal price of oil since 1870 and the cost of crude in real or inflation adjusted terms in the U.S. dollars. And so the nominal prices, I don't know if you can see them, maybe do your little darkness things again. Here. And then,
we're going to go into the darkness.
And then the real cost of oil, I should have probably allowed you to bring this up as, okay. And then the cost of oil, cost of a barrel of oil in real U.S. terms, some from 1980 to 2020. So the real cost of oil is way below even what it's ever been. Okay.
It's totally insane.
Okay, you can. In nominal terms, it's not a surprise to see that over 150 years for which we have data, there's never been a negative price print before. This is stunning, and it basically says that a barrel of oil earlier this week was effectively cheaper than it was in 1870, a period over which U.S. inflation has risen 2,870%.
Hey, that's a good point that they're actually addressing inflation there. Yeah. This is bringing to light inflation and how scary that is. 2,000%.
2,870.
2,870.
Broader markets have been buckling somewhat as energy markets appeared to be unraveling, but are demonstrating some resilience on Wednesday with the Dow Jones Industrial Average, blah, 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 blah. So
if you're with us, this is a big deal, but we are going to get to a lot more big. So here's what you had me put in the description. Mm-hmm. That so much news is happening every day that it's difficult. It would be better for us to just come to you guys live with everything, but we would literally be doing videos all day long. So we're going to get to the rumored death of Kim Jong-un. We're going to get to Trump. Did Trump really tell people to inject themselves with disinfectant? That's kind of like Lysol was trending, I think, yesterday.
Today, yeah.
And today is ridiculous. There's so much, so you will not want to miss the rest of our show. So
yeah, but this is really indicative of where markets and things are going.
You know what Lynette Zhang said?
As oil goes, so goes the country.
As oil goes, so goes the country. She was asked, can the stock market ever go negative like the oil prices? And her answer was really telling. She said, well, you wouldn't think, but you never would have thought that the oil prices could go negative either. And so she said, I absolutely could see the markets going negative.
And I think that's why I'm covering this as the first story. Because we have a canary dead in the coal mine. Right? And everybody's like, nope, air's fine. We're going to keep breathing. We're going to keep going forward. And we're like, do you see that canary? You see that bird? It's dead. Give me another bird. Oh, it's dead too. Give me another bird. It's dead. This is a canary in the coal mine. There is the oxygen in the room has been sucked out. It is now poisonous. Okay? There's no easy way out of the global oil glut that's caused a historic and occasionally bizarre collapse in crude oil prices this spring, according to a longtime commodity-focused hedge fund manager, blah, blah, blah. The next 4 to 6 weeks are all but certain to see continued increases in crude oil inventories as a result of the demand destruction wrought by the COVID-19. Let me just tell you something. It's just so simple. Why do people have to make it so complicated? People aren't going anywhere. Gas stations aren't having to go buy the gasoline.
Am I the only person?
The oil goes to the refinery, and the refinery goes to the gas stations, and we're not using it.
That learned supply and demand, and the whole concept around that. Because I feel like I might be the only person that knows that.
Why did nobody say, hey guys,
oh my gosh, nobody's driving anywhere. There's no cars on the road, but why isn't anybody using any gasoline? I don't know. That is a wonder.
They have all these mathematicians to tell us and statisticians to tell us how many people are going to get COVID, but they don't have the same mathematicians to do the same thing with gas prices.
Economists on. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
But it's insane that this is coming, like you said, as a surprise.
Surprise! Isn't that surprising to me?
I wasn't surprised. I'm feeling for people.
Yeah.
Not surprised.
Exactly.
Different.
Exactly. The industry seems to be a little bit reluctant to take the medicine that everyone else is taking, shuttering, furloughing, trying to balance supply and demand. Obviously, it's a huge part of the wealth of many, many countries, and so I understand it's extremely painful. So remember, Saudi Arabia, and this is why I said another thing that's important, Saudi Arabians don't actually work, most of them. That's why Saudi Arabian playboys are a thing. In Saudi Arabia,
they all live off of
everything is funded by the oil. It's a socialist country to where the money is distributed across all the families.
And why wouldn't you?
I don't know. But you have other countries who live off of oil as well. And there is another chart talking about
my chair keeps shrinking.
Yeah, they're told to produce 20% less than they were, or 30% less than they were, and instead the world was flooded with an additional crude as Saudi Arabia and Russia engaged in a price war that began in early March,
which is unfortunate timing.
But it's all about money for them, and to who's gonna. And
if we didn't have the demand issue or lack thereof, gas prices would still have gone down as a result of this price war.
Right.
So then you add to that the surplus of oil, and it was a perfect storm.
Yeah.
That has kind of like a storm coming through and uncovering the actual truth, which is really scary.
Yeah, I saw a ticker that went year by year in the different countries that produce the most oil, and now the United States is producing the most oil because because we take the earth and we destroy it, and we ask it to give up its oil out, and then we cause earthquakes everywhere. It's not a smart way to live life. Oh, there goes the light. Oh,
no.
Okay, there you go. So, as economies come back to life, oil refineries won't be roaring immediately back towards full capacity, but a pickup in gasoline demand, which has been destroyed as motorists stay home, and airlines.
Oh yeah, okay. So we keep talking about people not traveling,
right?
But when people travel, they don't just use cars; they use airplanes,
right?
They use a lot of other means of travel that require...
Right. So refiners are running
oil
at low capacity because gasoline demand has fallen as much as 50%, and storing gasoline is more onerous than storing crude or distillates. The Oil Price Information Service estimated that March gasoline demand fell 19.1% versus the same month last year, and in April was down 48.8%.
Wow.
So there's a lot less. Obviously, you could just see that whole tick. April was the month that everything really shut down. So Glenn Beck was talking about this.
We never watched the thing the other night.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he had a... So if you guys can find it, send me a link. Glenn Beck did a special on
it was supposed to be last night, wasn't it? No, it was supposed to be Wednesday night. It was scheduled for Wednesday night because we were working at our friends on Tuesday.
Scheduled for Wednesday.
It was scheduled for Wednesday.
It was supposed to be 9 on Wednesday, so yeah, I want to find that. He did a really cool... he was advertising a really cool special on the event 201, Bill Gates and all that. So he said, "You guys, we have to bring this back. We have to. If you can, just everyone go take a big long drive." And I just wanted to facepalm because
Glenn,
first of all, it's not going to do any good. I know it's not going to do any good, but it's going to make me feel better if everybody just goes take one drive. Okay, no, you don't understand. People take multiple drives throughout the day. But we talk about this all the time, and I was talking about this with some of my friends, and we don't have a job right now. You guys, we don't get paid for this.
But we had a client yesterday.
Yeah.
Randomly send us $50 via PayPal because she said, "I know a blessings on you during this time," because obviously she understands that she normally uses us, and Leah and I both cried.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Really nice of her.
But I say that to let everyone know that I'm not oblivious to the harm and to the hurt people are going through.
We're in it.
However,
we live in it.
We talk about all the harm that we're doing to the environment all the time. Mm-hmm. And right now, without that, we don't have a right to take all that oil from the ground and use it every single day. We don't have a right to pollute. We don't have a right to make smog. We don't have a right under God, right, to be so destructive to the earth. And, you know, I'm not one of those who think that humans are actually bad for the planet. God said, Adam, take care of it. And you can make it better. I know that the Amish that we get our raw milk from, their earth that they have since purchased, 126 acres, is better and healthier. Their soil is healthier and happier since they took it over from another person who farmed it. They're creating life. If you're planting trees, if you're growing things, if you've got animals on there on a rotational basis, you can heal the planet. You can build soil health up. When the settlers came here, there was 3 feet of topsoil to America because of the bison and the animals and that whole cycle of life, you know.
Although this entire thing has proven Greta to be right. Mildly. We are living in her dream, in AOC's dream. No planes, no trains, no cars. Everybody stays at home.
Right.
Okay. And so it does prove that it is better for the thing. Is Horatio sent this. It really smells. Anyway, it proves that it's better for the planet. Okay,
but you have.
But what's happening to the economy and people dying? Right. You know, there is that aspect,
and so you have to be able to look at it and say,
right.
You have to say, hey, you know, we shouldn't have needed to. This shouldn't have been what was a catalyst for planet health, and I do not advocate the continuation of people being hurt for planet health. That's just not a thing. People are more important.
Right.
People are more important.
But
lives are more important.
There is a way to have a booming economy and for people to relatively stay at home and live simpler lives.
Simpler lives.
And I think it's finding that balance that we are going to see over the next 5 years.
In the 60s and 70s, what people were saying is that it feels like the 60s and 70s with just families and their home.
It's already been done.
There were no restaurants. There was, you know, people...
Well, there were restaurants, but you didn't go all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Joel Salatin said, that both he and his wife remember a time where when they were kids, we remember each time we went out to dinner because it was like twice a year and it was a big deal.
Right. Exactly. All right. So, moving on. So, Trump has been raked over the coals. It's a little bit disconcerting.
Disinfectant.
Uh,
So, I think it's great because Trump is not a scientist, right? It is not his job to be one. It is his job to listen to those that are.
Yeah.
And our theory here on Resistance Chicks is that somebody in a meeting with Trump said something and he regurgitated it out incorrectly and has made a fool of himself. But when you compare it to the gaffes that Biden does, Biden has thousands,
Right.
Trump has like 10.
Okay, so let me explain this. What happened yesterday. President Trump has officially walked back last night's bonkers comments about using sunlight and disinfectant to cure the coronavirus. Trump says comments on disinfectant inside people's bodies to fight coronavirus was sarcastic. Trump says disinfectant on hands could have a very good effect. He slouched off the comments as sarcasm, though he couldn't entirely give up on the original point that drew him into this whole nonsensical mess, adding that he wants these measures to be reviewed just like everyone. Trump says he wants to review sun, heat effect on the virus in the body. Now, there is a thing, and CNN had a doctor on who was talking about the use of UV light on the body.
Exactly.
That's a thing.
Right.
And actually used UV light internally in a very interesting way that I don't quite understand. But he did not understand it either. Right? So, love him or hate him, we believe many would agree that President Trump has made some pretty wild comments during his tenure in office. So, let me see if I can give this to you. Increased temperature, humidity, and sunlight are detrimental to SARS-CoV-2 in saliva droplets on surface in the air. So, this came out the day before yesterday, and then this was something that he wanted people to be able to see.
Now, what you can't see, and I'll read it, is behind Leah's head it says half-life. The first one is 18 hours, then 6 hours, then 1 hour, 2 minutes, 60 minutes, 1.5 minutes. Okay? And these are
90 seconds of an aerosol COVID at 20% humidity in the summer is gone in 90 seconds.
That's crazy.
It's 90 seconds. It's just gone.
Now, when, who was in the hospital last? Uncle Jack? I think, yeah. He had to have a surgery. In order for him to get a room, they have started doing this new thing. She said we have to do the UV light treatment on the room.
Exactly.
They go into the room and they shine. They do the UV light treatment, whatever it is.
Right.
Okay, and it disinfects the entire room or surfaces that the UV light can get to.
Exactly.
They are starting to use this in the rooms on a regular basis. So not only after a patient leaves a room do they clean and disinfect the room, but they do the UV light thing as well.
Right. So during last night's press briefing, President Trump made some confusing remarks about a new treatment involving sunlight and bleaching of the lungs to combat the virus. It appeared that during Thursday night's presser, Trump was publicly spitballing about these treatments, which he said involved a very powerful light or heat. And he even said people could consider calling their doctors to ask whether possibly injecting light or heat may have, or maybe, he did not say Lysol or bleach. He just said disinfectant.
That's so
okay? Disinfecting. And here's the thing. Antibiotics are a disinfectant.
Exactly.
And, you know, like oregano oil is a disinfectant. Oil is a disinfectant.
But he should not have come out and said, I was being sarcastic. He should have said, I was referring to this specific thing.
So this is what he said. Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or very powerful light, and I think you said we're going to test it. Supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or some other way, and I think you said you're going to test that too. That sounds interesting. He was trying to say that whatever you're telling me sounds interesting.
Exactly. I heard that.
And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in 1 minute. And there is a way we can do something by an injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets in the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So you're going to have to use medical doctors with, but it sounds interesting to me.
What would be wrong?
What's wrong with saying
with intubating somebody or taking a probe or what? Not a probe, but like, you know how they do when they go in. What do they call it when they do things via a microscope? Scope. It's a scope.
Scoping, yeah.
Okay, so they go in. Somebody's going to correct me here in the chat. And they go in with that, and they do the UV light thing on the inside of the lungs.
They actually do that. They do an internal UV light thing. So it's not unheard of. All right. So obviously he's not very good at parroting things. But everybody's now, since, you know, improper use of disinfectants, everybody's making a you know, fun of him, and it's just okay. Let's just hear it.
Oh wait, here, wait, let me turn this button. I want them to be able to hear it. They're not going to hear it there. I'm going to pause it. Wait, just pause it and let this come on so they can actually hear it, because you need to be able to hear what he's saying. I'm connected. I'm going to check your connection.
Just plug it in. If it doesn't go, it usually means it's not plugged in.
It's plugged in over there. I plugged it in ahead of time. Whoa, that's loud.
Is that
Try
it?
the speakers and pull it off the TV, and then that should.
With a tremendous.
Oh.
Is your Bluetooth on? Turn it off and turn it back on again. Let's see. Thomas says, my wife believes it. He's ready to mainline Lysol if he gets a whiff of the virus. Gonzalo says, Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton were telling people to please not drink bleach. Sandra says, it depends if drinking counts as injecting. Let's see.
I see it's not there.
The bee lady says, also, when you begin coughing, drink tons of water. It washes it down to the stomach where the acid kills it. Jim West says, a nice sip of 30-year-old vintage Dettol with ice. Rome USA says, moonshine to disinfectant.
Okay, we've got it.
With a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that?
She's noticeably
by injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
And honestly, I
don't see anything wrong with what he said there.
I don't either.
It sounds interesting. What I'm hearing from these people sounds interesting.
And he's just literally being a normal person talking to us about things that he's hearing behind closed doors to give us hope. They're working at things, they're looking at things, and to kind of explain the fact that what we've been telling you is that light kills the virus. And we told you guys that back in like January.
Go outside.
And we talked about, the 1918
outside.
Flu.
And tuberculosis.
Outside. Exactly.
Jim West says he means like an internal laser, I think. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what kind of... Here's the deal. Trump doesn't know science. He's a president.
Injections of disinfectant.
No, I was asking a question sarcastically to reporters like you, just to see what would happen. Now,
Pause. Did you pause it? No, press play. You pressed pause.
disinfectant for doing this, maybe on the hands, would work. And I was asking the question of the gentleman who was there yesterday, Bill, because when they say that something will last 3 or 4 hours or 6 hours, but if the sun is out or if they use disinfectant, it goes away in less than a minute. Did you hear about this yesterday? But I was asking a very sarcastic question to the reporters in the room about disinfectant on the inside. But it does kill it, and it would kill it on the hands, and that would make things much better. That was done in the form of a sarcastic question to the reporters.
So you were asking your medical experts to look into it?
No. To look into whether or not sun and disinfectant on the hands, but whether or not sun can help us. Because, I mean, he came in yesterday and he said they've done a big study. This is a study. This isn't where he hasn't done it. This is where they've come in with a final report that sun has a massive impact negatively on this virus. In other words, it does not live well with humidity, and it doesn't live well with sunlight, heat. Doesn't live well with heat and sun and disinfectant. And that's what I brought out.
Follow up on the comments from yesterday. You said you were being sarcastic, but some people may have misunderstood you. Do you want to just clarify?
Well, I wish they wouldn't. I wish they would. Well, I think I did, but I wish they wouldn't. But I do think this. Yeah, I do think that disinfectant on the hands could have a very good effect. Now, Bill is going back to check that in the laboratory. You know, it's an amazing laboratory, by the way. It's amazing, the work they do. So he's going to check. Because a hard surface, this is a hard surface, I guess maybe depending on whose hand you're talking about, right? But this is a hard surface. And the disinfectant has an unbelievable, it wipes it out. You know, you saw it. Sun and heat and humidity wipe it out. And this is from tests. They've been doing these tests for, a number of months. And the result, so that I said, well, how do we do it inside the body or even outside the body with the hands? And disinfectant, I think would work. He thinks would work. But you use it when you're doing your hands. I guess that's one of the reasons they say wash your hands. But whether it's washing your hands or disinfectant on your hands, it's very good. So they're going to start looking at that. And there is a way of, if sun itself, that sun has a tremendous impact on it. It kills it like in 1 minute. It goes from, what was it, hours to like 1 minute. It's dead. So I said, you got to go back and look. But I'd like them now to look as it pertains to the human body, not just sitting on a railing or sitting on a wall. I'd like them to look as it pertains, because maybe there's something there. They have to work with I'm not a doctor. They have to work with the doctors. But maybe there is something to light and the human body and helping people that are dying. Okay?
But just to clarify that, sir, are you encouraging you're not encouraging Americans to...
No, of course. That was, interior-wise, it said sarcastically. It was put in the form of a question to a group of extraordinarily hostile people, namely the fake news media. Okay.
Some doctors felt they needed to clarify.
Can't take any more.
I'm curious, though, and I wish I knew, because I didn't watch yesterday live. I just watched pieces of it back. He keeps referring to a question, okay? Now, obviously, what we just watched was different, and I'm wondering if there isn't a clip of him when they did. So he was addressing an actual issue. He was talking about the light. That was not a question. He was literally going over that, segment, and then maybe afterwards they asked him a question.
No, they did.
And then that's where they're referring to
fake news.
Exactly. But the segment, so it's unfortunate that we played that segment and then this answer, because it sounds like he's lying. He's referring to the question asked later.
No, he's not.
Because he said it was an informal
because
question.
We just listened to what he said and the question was asked afterwards.
I know, but then he might have said something afterwards which he's referring to right now.
There were no questions. Okay. Yeah, but he didn't say, I can show you that clip. But no, he's making, I honestly, think he's making it go around.
I think he totally is too.
Okay, so.
But what I'm saying is, because I usually listen to the entire thing from start to finish, and I didn't do that yesterday. And so I feel like I don't have the authority to stand and say, for sure, he didn't do what he's just saying he did.
Yeah.
And you didn't watch it from start to finish either, so...
No, but I watched I watched the question back, and I thought I had brought it up, but I don't see it, actually. Here, all right. All the establishment media's dangerous coronavirus lies. Our sociopathic American media continue to lie, mislead, stoke panic, and behave in ways that prove that their only desire is to keep up the death count. 50,000 dead Americans are not enough. The media are counting on hundreds of thousands dead and a decimated economy, and all in the hopes of ushering an era of radical... What?
Because my neighbor and good friend Eileen is in the chat on Facebook. Thank you, Eileen. She says when her mother-in-law was in the hospital in February and probably had this but never tested for it, she had a dry cough, which quickly went into pneumonia, a pneumonia-like situation. They did an emergency procedure where they did a chemical cleaning of the lungs and bronchial passages with draining the lungs.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that Trump had already heard
that's a disinfectant.
and he regurgitated it in a way that didn't sound right because he's not a doctor.
Because other people aren't doctors either, and they heard disinfectant and they heard Lysol or alcohol.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you.
There are all kinds of emergency procedures that people do to take infection out of the body.
Yeah.
Okay? Internally, externally.
Gosh, these people jumping all over Trump, but nobody knows about Biden's gaffes. I think, but honestly, what I'm more upset about him, I'm not upset about the first comments. I'm more upset about him coming back saying I was saying it sarcastically. Okay? Yeah. I think what he's referring to is his sarcastic comments to the fake news at the end of these things. He gets so angry and so worked up about it, and I would too.
News, yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. But he should have just come out and said, no, I talked to scientists. They said this is an option. This is a thing. I just asked them to look into it. So he kind of did say that a little bit, but he's kind of dancing all over the place.
Exactly.
Not his best moment.
Yeah. All right. So, some of these headlines that are incredibly dangerous from the media, New York Times, Trump ignored experts who wanted the country closed in February. The far-left New York Times blasted Trump on Easter Sunday with a litany of serial lies that claimed the president knew the coronavirus was coming and ignored medical experts who were urging him to close the country all the way back in February. Mm-hmm. But remember, Dr. Anthony Fauci debunked this very lie the following day when he informed the public that Trump not only took the advice of his medical team the first time he was advised to shut down the country, but he has always accepted their recommendations and has done so immediately. And then, we didn't cover this, but Chris Cuomo remained heroically quarantined until cleared, but he wasn't quarantined. He had gone, and him and his wife, who both had COVID, left their house, went to another house that they owned with somebody else, and then he came out of quarantine. That was a total lie.
No, he didn't just come out of quarantine. I mean, he did a whole segment on his on the show. Like, this is my first time out of the basement. It's been so hard.
Right.
A big liar.
And then they said Trump slowed the delivery of the stimulus checks with his signature, and that's not true. It did not hold up the checks. Trump's council on reopening the country is staffed with only donors and supporters, which is not true. New York Times claims Sean Hannity killed a man. That's just absolutely insane. This says that Sean Hannity is responsible for the death of a man who took the coronavirus threat lightly, and they went on to say he took a cruise, and his family was like, because he took the cruise because he watched Sean Hannity, then he died of COVID. That's just crazy. Trump's responsible for coronavirus deaths. Not only was Trump not slow to act, the idea that he is in any way responsible for anyone's death is ludicrous. It's, if anyone was slow to act, it was China. There were a bunch of others this week. There was a Dr. Rick Bright who was supposedly fired over opposition of hydroxychloroquine. That was fake news. Trump proposed coronavirus sufferers to be injected with bleach. Not true. Trump hired a Labrador breeder to lead coronavirus task force. On Wednesday, fake news wire service routers fired off this headline. Special report: former Labradoodle breeder was tapped to lead U.S. pandemic task force, which quickly flew around the world, describing Brian Harrison as a Labradoodle breeder, someone who served at the Department of Health and Human Services under both George Bush and President Donald Trump. Is like describing Walt Disney as a newspaper boy. Yes, for a time, Harrison worked in a family breeding business. Yes, for a time, Walt Disney did deliver newspapers, but come on.
That's ridiculous.
Biden advisor claimed 100 million Americans would be infected by now. So during a March 27th appearance on MSNBC's Morning Joe, Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, a member of Joe Biden's coronavirus advisory group, shrieked about how 100 million Americans would be infected within 4 weeks. And then Washington Post reporter lies about price of disinfectant touted by White House. And this was just yesterday. So this person is a Washington Post reporter who put out this tweet yesterday that said, Ispirol alcohol, which the Trump administration is saying can kill the virus in 30 seconds on surfaces, now for sale on Amazon for $2,375. What she didn't post to you was the picture. It's a 55-gallon drum that's for sale on Amazon for $2,300.
Oh my gosh. Fake news. You are fake news.
I do believe that that's a kind of...
So, I want to address this fake news thing because this is your segment right now. Trump has become increasingly vitriolic. Is that a word? The vitriol that he has towards the fake news media
His
he's
patience
done.
is slim.
It's not even slim. He is done now. I truly believe, and I hear it from people that support Trump all the time, and they're like, but I just wish that he wouldn't be so harsh. I wish he wouldn't tweet. I wish he wouldn't
of Americans
be this
feelings
way,
on this
yada, yada,
coronavirus.
yada. You are a sheep. Forgive the saying. You don't know what's going on, okay? Do you understand the historic move that it takes for Trump to defund the World Health Organization, okay? It's massive. Why did he do that? Because Trump was made aware of the connection that is controlled from China to the WHO to the news media back to China. China controls it all, okay? And he saw for a fact, a 100% fact, that China is leading the headlines from CNN, from MSNBC, from CBS, okay? From all of them. They have bought them out. And who else did they buy out? The WHO. So China and the WHO are feeding every single headline that comes out of CNN and MSNBC and CBS.
Well, and it's not even that
right?
China might not have bought him out, but they definitely have the same enemy.
They are strong-arming the media. They are telling the media, this is what you will say. And the WHO is doing the exact same thing.
I don't
and
think
Trump
that it
now knows.
I don't think it's strong arming. I think that they just have the
They
same
own 'em.
goal. I think that they have the same goal.
Okay, well, regardless, they're all in cahoots together. It's a conspiracy. The WHO, China, and the mainstream media are a conspiracy, are conspirators, like Leah just said, that's fine, the same goal, whatever. And Trump now knows about it, and you don't. Okay? If you knew that China was controlling and influencing, if you want to use that word, our media to tell literal lies to the majority of the public, you would be done with them too.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
No, I don't have patience for you. You are
So why
spinning
don't you
China's
bring up
talking points.
why don't you? I'm going to give this headline as our little commercial break while you bring up this amazing segment with Tucker that kind of goes with explains a little bit more what I'm trying to say, what she's trying to say. China doesn't have enough money to have bought everybody and everything. I believe that ideologically, people fall on the same
They're on the same team. It doesn't matter whether you want to say they own them. They're on the same team.
Ilhan Omar receives funding from Qatar. Okay? But AOC has the same ideological bent as a communist. They're democratic socialists. They lean Marxist Leninists. So just like we have a bent towards Christianity and Christian governments, these progressives have a bent and a slant and a soft spot for communist governments. Yeah. And that is why the progressives went so hard against the Russian narrative. Right. And then what you see now is a tiny sub-split of those progressives are so delusional that they can't see that China has 1 million Uyghurs in these prison camps, that they force sterilize people, they rip babies out of wombs, they kill babies alive.
They harvest organs, they keep people alive till they can harvest their organs.
And I keep hearing the same line from a lot of people, well, they just like that way, they're just born that way, and you're going to see this clip here that because of Confucianism and whatever, they have an ideological bent towards collectivism. No. Anybody who has dissension goes to prison. Right. And they have a firewall on their internet and information, and they can't travel anywhere outside of China unless they're good CCP people. Right. Who are proven to not flee the dark side. Right. It was very interesting because we have a friend from China who came here and did a bicycle trip, and now he travels around the world on different motorbikes and bicycles, and he went down to a college where there is kind of a Christian revival there, where these Chinese students come and they get red pilled and they come to know Jesus, and then they come to recognize the evils of the CCP.
Right. So our friend Faith, hi Faith, from Leah's Bible. We keep having all your Bible college people here. She says, "Yep, this is all agenda driven, praying." And I want to wrap that back around because she added a very crucial element here: praying. God has a plan. God is moving. God is doing huge things right now. The amazing part of this is that their agenda is being exposed for the first time, so that everybody is seeing it. That's half the battle.
Okay, so you get that clip up. Very interesting. I have good news for you. Normally news segments are all about death and murder and homicide, right?
Right?
Well, Miami, Florida has broken a record. A homicide record.
What?
Miami goes 7 weeks without a homicide for the first time since 1957. People just don't feel like killing people.
You're going to play the clip? You're just going to read it?
This crisis. In a new CBS News poll, an overwhelming majority,
I don't know if that's what this video is.
Say,
so we're going to see.
Okay.
Sometimes they put a video
right.
up. Crime rates in cities nationwide have dropped as stay-at-home orders. The criminals don't want to get the virus. If I shoot you, you might exert some bodily fluids, and I don't want the virus. Even gangsters don't want a virus.
Well, and I said something the other day about...
put your hands up. Let me spray you down with Lysol first,
I said
baby.
something the other day about how pedophilia has dropped. Huge.
Child sex trafficking
has dropped. And everybody's like, no, it still exists. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It is down. It is massively down.
Sex trafficking down. And not only that, for sure, brothels are down. We have a brothel here in Nevada.
Right.
And they're asking for a bailout from the government.
The brothel?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So they can talk about supply chains, okay? Things in our society and in this world are very sensitive. Mm-hmm. And the end being of concerts and sports events for sex trafficking is a huge part of the supply chain.
Exactly.
So if that is shut off, then that has a domino effect moving backwards. They don't have a way and a means to distribute their product, which is the child or the human.
Right.
Okay. And so it stops.
Right. People aren't driving downtown. That's where a lot of prostitution is happening.
They're not recruiting more. They're not kidnapping more people because they've already got a massive amount of product that cannot be delivered anywhere.
Let them go, baby. In the name of Jesus.
They're going to have to let them go.
In Miami, Florida, yeah, exactly. They're going to have to pay people to take these people. They're going to have to pay the people to leave.
Yeah.
Right?
Here's some money.
In Miami, Florida, there were no homicides for 7 weeks for the first time since 1957, according to the Miami Police Department. There were also no homicides during a 6-week period for the first time since 1960. We can say that it's due, to our high police visibility attributed with the pandemic and the stay-at-home order. Mayor Francis Suarez declared a local state of emergency on March 12th to slow the spread. And then from February 17th until April 12th of this year, a total of 7 weeks and 6 days, Miami has reported no homicides, according to the police. In 1957, the city went 9 weeks and 3 days without any reported homicides, and in 1960, the period of 6 weeks and 5 days. According to the Miami police, other crimes have also decreased. The department said that the decrease has extended to domestic violence calls. So actually less. People said there would be more domestic violence.
Yeah.
But there's less domestic violence calls in Miami,
I have a lot
Florida.
to say on this when you're done.
He is concerned. The New York Times, let's see. But Miami police chief told the New York Times he is concerned incidents of domestic violence and child abuse may be underreported during the order. Crime is also down in Baltimore since Maryland issued its stay-at-home order. CBS Baltimore reports, although criminal incidents in the city still continue on a daily basis, assault, carjacking, robbery, and shootings have all gone down since the order was implemented. When compared to the same time last year, common assaults in Baltimore went down 34%, aggravated assaults down 17%, and shootings dropped 8%. Not much, but we'll take it. Los Angeles, similar drop in crime, about a 10% drop overall, and homicides in particular. Less people want to kill people, down 21%. The same cannot be said, unfortunately, for Chicago. So Tuesday night, there were 6 homicides. 19 shootings, 6 homicides. So Chicago.
So here's my take on this. All right, because
Miami people have a different view on when you got to kill somebody than people in Chicago.
I think it is around the world. Okay, here is what we know. we know as Christians that the devil is the prince of the ruler of the air. Okay? We know that Hollywood has been shut down. We know that people aren't going to concerts. We know that people aren't feeding their flesh on a massive scale. Okay? The devil is down. Devil rates are down. This is what happens, okay?
Demonic
activity is down. And that's not going to go in a stat. So when I hear from my truthers out there, and God love you all, that are saying, where are all of the regular deaths? Everything is being reported as COVID-19. Now, you have a part truth. Yes, hospitals are falsifying COVID-19 deaths because they get funding, okay? But what you're not seeing, for a lot of people, it has to be black or white, and they can't use the power of the Holy Spirit and just wisdom and understanding to see between the black and white to the gray area of the fact that deaths are really just down. They want to know, where are all of the heart attacks? Where's the cancer? Where's this? Where are the accidents? When you slow life down, when you stay in your home with your family, okay? Oh, what about all the kids that are going to start being abused now because they're at home? Well, what about the love of God that exudes from people when they are at home with their families? Okay, we're seeing the light of Christ spread abroad in people's lives. So yeah, deaths are down. They're not all just fake COVID-19s. Deaths are literally down. Heart attacks are down. Why? Because stress is down. So many people that live a high stress life because of what they have to do, of the go, 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 okay? Moms aren't going to get it as sick because they're not go, go, going, taking the kids from soccer practice to this, to that, to this, to that. And moms have so much stress. And a lot of people say, oh, you don't understand. Moms are totally stressed out because they have to homeschool their kids. Well, guess what? Yes, it's a different kind of stress. It's a stress that there's an anointing from God for as a mom, and they can tap into that. All right. Yes, we can move on. But this is really important because we are seeing this segment right here. Your little commercial break could be the whole show. What we need to focus on is what is good, what God is doing, how God is moving in all of this, how the devil's powers are diminishing by the second. As a result of this.
And this is why we play off each other in the show, because we are not downplaying the hardships. We have a friend of ours whose back is out. She can't do a walk-in with her chiropractor. The only one that she can get into, she can't get until Monday. There are bad things happening to people. I'm not saying that this is all good. I'm not saying that we should go la la la. If you have an issue with what's going on, then you need to tell people, and we can pray for you, and let's find out a way that we can help each other through this. I'm not saying, and so I wanted to balance it because we tend to sometimes be on the side of, hey, look at all the stuff that God is doing, not recognizing that a lot of things are happening that are harmful and and hurtful to people.
Okay, so let me read a couple of comments, and then we'll do the Tucker segment. Let's see. Sandra says nobody wants to go to the hospital right now, though. I still don't think they're just suffering at home, though. I think that there is an element of that.
A lot of people don't want to go to the hospital.
But you're right. Let's see. Ross Boyd says exposure to the corruption is happening in all aspects. Yes, absolutely. Stuart the Brit says so many happy families out in Wiltshire countryside lately. Nice to see. He's in the UK. Jim West says I'm enjoying life more than before, almost. So yeah, I like to hear from you guys to what you were saying. Britt Boz says, from what I've heard of the UK hospitals, they are empty. No one is going to the hospital at all unless they have COVID, and doctors are saying if you're ill, go to the doctors or the hospital. Only shopping that's tough. And that's, I think, where most of us are at. That it's just the shopping that is the biggest inconvenience for us all. So let's go to the Tucker segment. Leah set this up as, I think Tucker sets it up well, but they had him on, they had not had him on. They had exposed this McKinsey deal the night before on Tucker, and the guy that they were referring to called them up and said, hey, I'd like to defend myself. And as Leah was listening last night, my mom kept coming in, and Leah's kept pausing it because she didn't want to miss a word of it, because everything that was out of this guy's mouth, here, I think this one's yours, is it's kind of shocking, right, to be hearing. So I don't know if we're going to play the whole thing. We may. It's 15 minutes long, but you will be
to fawn over the Chinese government, one of the most repressive regimes in the world. In an interview with China's government news service, for example, McKinsey's senior partner Peter Walker came off like a smitten teenager, all aflutter. Quote, "What I discovered in China was the people were happy. They were proud. They were energized. The government officials I met genuinely wanted to do the right thing for the people." Well, as it turned out, that was just a taste of Walker's effusive praise for the Communist government of China. Here's more.
I think the Chinese people have realized that whenever they're upset by anything that happens, whether it was the Sichuan earthquake or SARS or what's going on with the price of pork, I think the people speak out loud and clear, and I think the government is largely responsive. But, to me, that's just part of a system where they define democracy as responsive to the people. And I think they tend to do that reasonably well.
Walker says he has visited mainland China at least 80 times over the course of his long career. He's also written a book. It's called Powerful, Different, Equal, Overcoming the Misconceptions and Differences Between China and the United States.
So pause
Chinese
it right
state
there.
propaganda authorities have publicly praised Walker's book as helpful to their cause.
Okay. So the reason we're bringing this up, this McKinsey Institute, it influences public policy.
Well, not only that, I mean, they are completely, it's kind of like the skulls and crossbones, where all the elite go through it.
I was trying to, yeah. So here's a quick sample of McKinsey alumni. Sanjar Pichai of Google. James Gorman of Morgan Stanley. Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook. I do believe you had Buttigieg went there. And I don't know if you even, Chelsea Clinton, and it's just kind of a who's who of
they're good
of
at
names
placing
there.
people in high positions in the world.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Okay.
Cause. After we aired last night's segment, the snippet of which we just showed you, Peter Walker contacted our office here and asked for the chance to come on the show and respond to what we said, and we're glad he did. Peter Walker joins us tonight. Mr. Walker, thank you so much for coming on. I want to get to something that you said. I want to start with the pandemic, because that's why we're talking about China in the first place. And I want to get to something that you said to Bloomberg Television last month, and I'm quoting you here. Yep. You said you were praising China's response to it, and you said, I'm quoting, "When people look back at what was done with the magnitude of the quarantine in China, they are going to get high praise." Now, credible reports suggest that Chinese authorities locked people in their apartments and left them to die. We know they snatched people off the street and threw them into police vans. God knows where they went. That's the quarantine that you think they deserve high praise for. Why?
Well, I think, Tucker, if you just look at the results, okay, so I know there's always going to be questions about exactly what the numbers are, but I think the harsh action that they took, given the scale of China and the number of big cities in it, was exactly what they needed to do to be able to prevent the outbreak from going any further. And the reality is the outbreak hasn't gone much beyond Wuhan. Now, having said all that, am I happy about their lack of disclosure and lack of transparency? Absolutely not. They should be faulted for that. They should be accountable for that.
Okay. What would you say to the families of those who died, starved to death, alone in their apartments, or the people who are wondering where their relatives went after they were bundled into Chinese police vans? How would you square their grief with the praise you just heaped on the quarantine?
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, you just have to look at the total picture. It's like when Cuomo gets on every night and Trump gets on every night. Everybody's heart has to go out to every individual who died. And it's part of the suffering that comes with this disease, and it's heartbreaking. Every single one of them is. But
what he's trying to say is the deaths of people that China locked into their homes, who starved to death or were forcibly dragged out of their homes. This is completely tyrannical, draconian measures that China did. He's just saying that's just part of the disease, and it's all sad. That's what he's literally saying.
Let me explain a little bit about what McKinsey does. Pete Buttigieg accepted a position at a management consultant. They're a consultant business for management.
You know, I would like to be a consultant. Would anybody like to pay me to be a consultant? Because you can cover up so much. You can just say, well, I'm in consulting. You know, I got people that consult me all the time.
There was no reason for Pete Buttigieg to go there. But top graduates of elite colleges typically pass through McKinsey or a similar firm before settling into their adult career. But the conventional nature of the career path makes it more or not less worthy of examination. How did this come to pass? Why do people go through these places? So the answers to these questions put management consultants at the epicenter of economic inequality and the destruction of the American middle class. And what he's going to go on to tell you is that Tucker says, do you think, he goes on, it's a very long interview, it was enthralled the entire time, and he says, do you feel bad for your consulting recommendations to businesses, American businesses, to go to other companies for cheaper labor? And he feels absolutely no guilt. He says, guess what, if we move those essential businesses like manufacturing of antibiotics and vitamin C and medical things and all the different things that China now makes, he helped, and the McKinsey Institute helps the managers make those moves.
From the U.S. to China.
They make the moves to destroy the American middle class.
Yes.
Okay? And that is the epicenter of the Democrat Party. The answer also explains why the Democrat Party's left wing is so suspicious of the nice and obviously impressive young man, blah, 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 blah. Management consultants advise managers on how to run companies. McKinsey alone serves management of 90 of the world's 100 largest corporations. Managers do not produce goods or deliver services. Instead, they plan what goods and services a company will provide, and they coordinate the production workers who make the output. They don't care about people at all. It's all about the bottom line. And he will tell you, in the 80s and 90s, it was all about cheapest labor, whatever. Because complex goods and services require much planning and coordination. Management, even though it is only indirectly productive, adds a great deal of value. The managers, as a class, capture much of this value as pay. And so in the middle of the last century, management saturated American corporations. Every worker from the CEO down to production personnel served partly as a manager, participating in planning and coordination, blah, 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 blah.
You want to get back to Tucker?
Go ahead. And I just wanted to give you an example, an idea of why he is talking to this man and why this McKinsey Institute is, why he's trying to expose them, because they and he has such a China-centric communist mindset. So what you see at the top 90 of 100 companies in the world are, and that's why I was trying to say it's not about just China. It's about a mindset of communism. This guy is not Chinese.
Right.
But they feel like workers are workers. They're just cheap. I mean, it's value. He has no moral compass there.
They had to do it. Otherwise, if you could imagine the scale of China, if that blew out in large numbers to other cities, the numbers would be off the charts.
Well, Wuhan, where it began, is roughly the size of the New York metro area. We've lost more people in New York than the Chinese at least publicly admit they lost in Wuhan. Given that you are praising their response, do you think American authorities would be warranted in locking infected New Yorkers in their apartment until they starve to death?
Well, I mean, the U.S., I think, got a late start when all is said and done. China got a late start, too. But I think the U.S. got a later start and was also more unprepared when it comes to having the kind of the people, staff, the health workers, the equipment that was required, the PPE,
For sure.
all of that.
I think that's right. But if we had started earlier, do you think it would have been wise to lock people in their apartments till they die?
No, look, I mean, there are a lot of things about China I don't like, and certainly those specific actions, I think, were overly harsh, were insensitive, and China bears the brunt of that. They're accountable for that. I totally agree.
Okay, so you said that you don't like some of the things China has done. I just want to go to something that you have said. This is from your website that you do like. you were asked about the Uyghurs. I'm sure you've been asked many times, and you were contrasting human rights in the U.S. and China. You said, in the U.S., human rights are inalienable and absolute. Human rights in China are relativist to be weighed against other societal needs. For example, you mentioned the Uyghurs, including food and shelter. You said, as an example, on the treatment of the Uyghurs, China would point to dramatic improvements in the Uyghurs' quality of life, and that would include over the last 50 years in terms of literacy, prosperity, and longevity, as well as a sharp reduction in Islamic terrorist incidents to the benefit of all Chinese. That's what China got out of putting 1 million people in concentration camps. Do you think that was a fair trade-off? It sounds like you do.
No, actually I don't. I understand that from the government's point of view, clamping down on Islamic terrorism was a high priority. And one of the things when you spend a lot of time in China, as I have, is they are fanatics about stability. Do I agree that locking down 1 million people in a internment camp is a smart way to deal with Islamic terrorism? Absolutely not.
But I wonder though, well, good. But may I ask, why would you note that their literacy had increased? I guess the obvious question is, who cares about your literacy if you're in a concentration camp?
Yeah, but you know, that's a good point, Tucker. So one of the things in researching my book that just became very clear to me, because a lot of times I said to the Chinese people, I said, you got a lot of things going for, why are you doing things the way you do? And one of the things you discover about the Chinese society, it's a collectivist society. So very different from the individualistic society of the U.S. So in China, literally the way they would look at it is there are probably 80 million people in Xinjiang where the Uyghurs live. We locked up 1 million, and so 79 million people are materially better off in terms of the quality of life, standard of living, and everything else. And it was only about 1.5% that we locked up. That's how they think about it. Do I agree with that? No, I don't agree with it. But that difference between collectivism and common good is a huge disconnect with the U.S. because we regard it, always have been proud of, every human life is sacred, and therefore any injustice is something we ought to be railing against, and they're just not wired that way.
Well, sure.
They're just not wired that way.
When you say, well, let me just back up. Do you think it's a...
This is so racist. But go ahead.
They're just not wired that way.
Genetic question when you said they're not wired that way?
No, it really goes back to Confucian values. You know, Confucian values, and I know there's been a lot of negative press on Confucian institutes, but if you just go back to Confucian values, one of the things you'll learn is family first, society second, individual way down the totem pole, and the individual's role is self-improvement through education to better serve family and society. So whenever you talk to the Chinese about how is the country doing, they always go back to the broad base of maximum number of people out of poverty, education, whatever it is.
I bet they do. They do. I mean, that's a pretty handy way to excuse putting 1 million people in a concentration camp. I wonder, though, and I know it's hard, this is a problem in my life, it's hard to hear myself sometimes when I speak, but listening to you, this seems like a pure apology for fascist behavior.
Well, look, I mean, let me go back to what I said before. Do I agree with putting 1 million people in internment camps? Absolutely
no, but it turns out pretty good.
Went through this too. I mean, we did this to the Japanese.
Actually, we didn't. Okay, so if you're going to try to draw the moral equivalence, let me just ask you the obvious question, because I don't think anyone would do this for free. Yeah. How much money have you made over the course of your long career with McKinsey in China? Would you just, if you could put it kind of...
That's good.
Made a real mistake in not protecting our intellectual property, but the cow's out of the barn, and the reality is the Chinese momentum behind their economy is very strong, and containment is too little too late. So as a pragmatist, I just basically say, if China and the U.S. got together on the next coronavirus, or got together on the Paris
you have some inside information, mister?
The world to be a better place.
But the two... and perhaps you're right, but to dismiss our present concerns as too far gone to fix is a little bit like setting a fire and then not calling the fire department because the building's a total loss. I mean, McKinsey is one of the reasons that we don't make pharmaceuticals or masks or a lot of machine tools or a million other things in this country because you all advised American companies to offshore the production. So do you regret that advice that you gave to American companies?
Well, look, I think we're in a different world now in terms of being much clearer about what really essential goods are or not. I think in the spirit of what McKinsey was advising, I think everybody was in favor of free trade in the sense of let every country do what they do well. And if you could take advantage of cheap, talented labor in China, which is not so cheap anymore, it was kind of something that improved the overall economic well-being globally. Slavery. And the economists would say that. I think now that we're realizing the dependencies. I mean, how many Americans would have imagined that most of the ingredients for pharmaceuticals came from China and you're vulnerable? So I think this coronavirus
Did you think of that at the time? Because you had well, for sure, and that's why we're grateful that you're on tonight, because a lot of us have been awakened to this, but I'm wondering, as someone who had a front row seat to the process itself, most of us were sort of blissfully unaware, but you saw it happen. Did it ever occur to you, wait, maybe we should make some, I don't know, antibiotics in the United States? Maybe it's unwise as an American to abet the offshoring of pharmaceuticals.
Okay, you can pause there. Now, I'm going to back this article real quick.
You could always look back
to
and
just
say,
explain to you.
Pause. Are we going to finish it or just be done?
We're finished.
We're finished with you.
Just to explain to you the power that this McKinsey Institute has had over your life, over my life, and over these dead people all over the world, okay? Right. So, to give you an example, in 1939, for example, all save 2 grocery chain Safeway division managers had started their careers behind the checkout counter. At McDonald's, Ed Rensi worked his way up from flipping burgers in 1960s to become CEO. More broadly, a 1952 report by Fortune magazine found that 2/3 of senior executives have more than 20 years service in their current companies.
That's a beautiful thing. You join McDonald's, one day you can be CEO of an unhealthy food chain.
No, but that's the way most companies had worked. And I'm going to tell you, the pay was actually different. Workers' pay was rising. Yeah. Executive pay did not. Middle managers able to plan and coordinate production independently of elite executive control. The executive controllers who come in out of college, learn how to manage things, and they go straight into a company to manage. Right. Rather than working your way up,
so understanding going to Annapolis.
Understanding the way something works.
Skipping the boot camp.
Exactly. Shared not just the... And Pete Buttigieg did that too. He skipped boot camp too.
I wouldn't skip
share not the responsibilities, but also the income and status gained from running their companies. Top executives enjoyed commensurably less control and captured lower incomes. This democratic approach to management compressed the distribution of income and status. In fact, a mid-century study of General Motors published in the Harvard Business Review, completed in a portent of what was to come by McKinsey's Arch Patton, found that from 1939 to 1950, hourly workers' wages rose 3 times faster than elite executives' pay.
As it should be.
The management function's wide diffusion throughout the workforce substantially built the middle class. At the time of Patton's study, McKinsey and other management consultants still played a minor role in how companies ran. The earliest consultants were engineers who just advised factory owners on measuring and improving efficiency.
Because they had done it already.
Right. Exactly. Things changed in the 60s. McKinsey led the way. In 65 and 66, the firm placed help wanted ads in the New York Times and the Time magazine with the goal of generating applications that it could then reject and establish its own eliteness. McKinsey's competitors followed suit. You've got the Bolson Consulting Groups, Bruce Henderson, and other ones. And then the new ideal of shareholder primacy, meaning you come in, it doesn't matter what we do, shareholder profits, increase your profits. in a New York Times Magazine article in 1970, the social responsibility of business to increase its profits. You've heard this. You've heard there's a legal responsibility of CEOs to their shareholders.
Right. To get bigger and bigger and bigger.
And now what we have seen is that what that does is the shareholder, if your main ideal, your main goal as a manager is to increase,
benefit the shareholder and not to make better products or a better work environment for your employees.
Exactly. You're going to do things like cut costs, treat your employees worse. You're going to cut bathroom breaks. You're going to cut. But to make all this happen, you're going to just increase the CEO pay. So that is what this segment was about, and the fact that this guy ran the ball for China just opened my eyes. The way he's like, yeah, but they just want to be this way because of Confucius. No. You're Confucius. You're Confucius. Okay? There are millions of Christians who are underground. There's a firewall. You can't even discuss Tiananmen Square. To say that they're wired to just...
It's very racist.
Collective. It is so racist. It is literal Hitler. Like, he is literally, like, calling Donald Trump a Nazi. The McKinsey Institute, those words that come out of his mouth are literal Nazism, are literal fascism, and it's right there spewing all over all of us, recognizing that and you can literally say the companies, the 90 biggest companies in the world are fascist.
Right. So here's the deal. When he said, I love that he used the word, he could have said a lot of different things. They aren't wired that way. You can rewire people. And that's what's happened to the Chinese people. It's called indoctrination and it's called brainwashing. And they are not wired because of the brainwashing to understand individualism, the good news, and I like to always put a good news spin on there, ever since they have rescinded the one-child policy and made it a two-child policy, what you do is you have created a more sound-mindedness. Because when it's just you and your parents, and that's the only family you have, no one has aunts and uncles, no one has cousins, no one has sisters and brothers, okay? It is very damaging on an entire society to do that. And so they are opening up. It is unwiring the brainwashing.
And to say they're not wired that way is just crazy, because so many people, we are wired as human beings to love liberty and freedom. Because before Chairman Mao, while they lived in communities, they had individuals who ran individual businesses, and their country was more of a peasantry run country, but they actually didn't starve. They had clothes. Life wasn't bad until Chairman Mao came in and ruined everybody's life.
So our friend Catherine says, the McKenzie video was crazy. It's so weird to hear liberals try to talk. Because they have these viewpoints, and then when they actually put them into words, it's like, it's like Tucker said, it is hard to hear yourself back sometimes, but this is what you sound like.
Exactly. No, you're definitely on there. So I have some good news. Today on the Steve Bannon show, they had on the doctor from New Rochelle who treated over 1,400 patients with he treated 1,400 patients with COVID-19, but he treated them early on. 400 high-risk patients he treated early on with a 3-drug regime: hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, which is antibiotic, and zinc. And he is...
Are you going to play the segment?
Yeah. And it's really great. It's Dr. Vladimir Zelenko from New York, and
literally minutes away from our best friend Ashley.
Yeah, this was when she sent us videos of what the National Guard was sent in. It was the very first quarantine in our country.
Yep.
It was like a mile or two away from her house.
In New Rochelle.
But what you don't hear from the mainstream media is this particular doctor who is taking hydroxychloroquine, and all the doctors he knows are taking it as a prophylactic, meaning so he doesn't get anything. Because
anybody that goes to any area where there's a malaria. Like, you're going to travel overseas to areas where they have malaria, you take hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah, exactly. So Dr. Vladimir Zelenko from New York announced over 400 of his high-risk patients with COVID-19 have recovered. All were treated with his 3-drug regime. But critics are skeptical of the efficacy. He says, if it was peacetime, we could spend months doing studies. Let's say 4 months doing a clinical study. Figure out which bullet is the shiniest and which works the best and which medication has the least side effects. But what I love about what he said here was that nobody was treating any of the patients. And he said, I'm not just going to send my patients home to die or just to let their body fight it off.
What he says is, and that's the standard procedure was, if you have COVID-19, you go home, and if you get worse,
you go to the hospital.
Then you go to the hospital. And he said, but we don't do that with anything else.
It gets even worse. He says, standard treatment is, you go home, and if you don't get better, you have to be extremely sick to be admitted to the hospital, and then you have a 50. You get put on an intubator, and then you have a 50% chance of dying.
Right.
At that point, he goes, "Wait a minute, let's treat these people early on." He goes, "Well, let me just tell you what he has to say. Let's just see what he has to say." Let me get back here.
So, Dr. Zelenko, how do you?
Zelenko, here we go. Let's get Dr. Zelenko on here. Dr. Zelenko.
I think it's a real hero.
He's like, if somebody hurts their foot, we don't wait until they have to chop their foot off to treat it. I mean, we treat immediately when people get sick.
Right.
Later in the show, magnificent article on.
Let's see.
His name is Jack Maxey.
You don't want to miss this. Stick around for this. This is the guy that literally started the whole hydroxychloroquine
I'll take
craze.
that as a great honor. Doctor, welcome to our show, and we'd love to just hear what you're talking about. We know you're writing a paper discussing your results, and you have the floor, sir. Please tell us what's going on.
So thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you for having me. So I'll just give you the background. I'm a doctor for 35,000 people who live within a 1 square mile.
He's a Hasidic doctor.
And I knew that when the virus will hit this community, it will spread because of the population density. And basically the whole focus of the world up to this point has been to build more respirators. There's been zero emphasis on how to have a clinical intervention, free hospital, and the primary care office that would slow down, prevent, arrest development of catastrophic pulmonary complications. So every doctor around the world at this point has been telling patients that come into their office that have the infection, go home, pray, drink fluids, take Tylenol, and if and when you develop pulmonary complications, go to the hospital, you get intubated, and then you have a 50% chance or more of dying. That's the treatment model up to this point. Now, nowhere in medicine ever do we have an approach where we let a fire get out of control before we try to put it out. So, for example, someone has the influenza virus, they come into the doctor's office within 48 hours, they're given Tamiflu. Someone has strep throat, they come into the doctor's office, get antibiotics before they develop rheumatic heart disease and need open heart surgery. Someone has an infection on their foot, for example. They don't wait until they become septic and half dead before we treat it. Someone who has appendicitis, we don't wait for it to rupture before we treat it, except when it comes to COVID-19. When it comes to COVID-19, we wait. We allow a subset of patients who fall into the high-risk category that have a 5 to 10% chance of dying to develop these terrible infections. The government tells you not to treat them. They tie our hands. The patient ends up in the hospital, half dead, and then they do studies that came out recently, and all these studies have one thing in common, that they are done on the sickest of the sickest patients on ventilators. They cherry-pick these patients who have a mortality rate above 50%, and then they come to the conclusion that these patients, the medicines didn't help. And I agree, they don't help at that point.
Pause it right there, because we've already known that. We talked about that on our show here several times. The hydroxychloroquine has its best benefit when treated at the earliest onset. It's actually not that effective when treated later on. So everybody that gets coronavirus should be being treated with this as soon as they find out that they have it.
Yeah.
And prophylactically, you could be taking it as well.
Yeah, and you also don't know about your if you start to take this, you're doing studies about how long you might not be contagious as long if you
exactly.
The key here, and the nefarious, evil, terrible lie that's being propagated, is that they take data or results that apply to a very narrow spectrum of patient, and then they make a logical fallacy and generalize it so that they disparage this medication so that to say it doesn't work. You cannot make that conclusion from flawed studies that are designed to fail. So let me tell you my data, okay? I saw 1,450 patients diagnosed with COVID-19. Out of those, I divided them into two groups, high risk and low risk. Low risk I did not treat because they're going to get better without any intervention. High risk, defined as over the age of 60 with symptoms, under the age of 60 with symptoms but have chronic medical problems like cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, things like that, or anyone that just really looks sick in my office, toxic, difficult breathing. I group them into the high-risk category because they have a 5% chance of dying probably in this country. And I treated those patients, 405 patients that fell into that category out of almost 1,500 patients. So it's a minority. It's not a majority. But they are the high-risk patients. If you look in the hospitals, these are the patients that are dying. And I initiated treatment, and here's the key. I initiated treatment based on clinical suspicion, even without confirmatory testing.
This is key.
I did the testing, if I had the test, but I did not delay treatment for 72 hours because it took 3 days to get the results. And those are the crucial 72 hours that if we intervene early, we can reduce the viral load in such a way that the compromised person's immune system could actually clear the infection without the development of these terrible acute respiratory distress syndrome or pneumonia. Now,
just treat them.
My data shows like this the following, that out of those 405, I had 2 patients die, 4 patients on the respirator. Now they're off the respirator, and 5 or 6, I forget, admitted in the hospital with pneumonia for IV antibiotics, and most of them are home already.
Wow.
Statistically, would have expected 20 dead, and a multiple of that, probably around 30 or 40 on a respirator. So that was a significant order of magnitude better outcome than was statistically being reported. I made a YouTube video addressed to the president, said that, look, I found something important. Next day, Mark Meadows called me. He wanted to know what I was doing. I told him, said, but at that point, I only had a very few number of patients. So obviously, you couldn't make generalized conclusions from that yet.
1,000 patients.
And then
400 treated.
He told me to keep in touch. I had his cell number and email, and I periodically, every few days, gave him updates. Then Sean Hannity somehow got to me, and he read my written protocol on air. That night, he presented it to the vice president. Then 2 days later, the Mayor Giuliani called me, and I did a 45-minute podcast since then with him. And since then, the world has exploded. I've been literally consulted by governments because this is a world war, you see. 182 countries are fighting the same enemy.
Amen.
And no one really has an answer. Now, the answer that I developed costs between $12 and $20.
Here it comes.
And it's oral. It's pills.
Listen.
And these are old drugs. Azithromycin is the most common antibiotic in America. Hydroxychloroquine is 60 or 70 years old, used for malaria prophylaxis, and rheumatological diseases. I have so much experience with this drug. It's used for rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. Never had any problems. I spoke to 3 electrophysiologists. These are cardiologists specializing in the electrical system of the heart, the rhythms. And I said, well, because everyone says side effects, they're dangerous. So I said to them, well, let's quantify that. Let's really see how dangerous they are. So amongst these 3 electrophysiologists, they had 100 years of clinical experience. I said to them, did you ever see a complication from hydroxychloroquine? No. I said, can you quantify the risk? They said, probably 1 in 1,000. I don't know. So think about it this way. If you have 1,000 patients that are high risk, and I give this medication to 1,000 patients, maybe 1, theoretically, may have a negative outcome. Maybe. But 100 will be saved. So everything in life is a risk versus benefit analysis. You get into the car, you take a risk of dying, but you go to work because you need to make money. So you every second of your life, you're making risk versus benefit. And medicine is no different. So I'm not saying we should treat everyone. Yeah, go ahead.
Doctor, could I ask you a real quick question? Because I know a lot of our viewers are questioning it. Do you see any benefit to the zinc along with the hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin?
I was the advocate that started this. Let me explain to you how it works. It's not magic, okay? If you had the scientific basis for what's going on, you would understand, and it will answer all your questions. So Is that okay? Can I explain to you how it works?
Absolutely. Yeah, by the way, Doctor, we also want you, just keep going, but we would like to, can you stay over for the next segment?
Stephen K. Bannon.
How do you counter that? You've now seen this onslaught that's coming, and I realize that you're saying that the studies are not done. Are you coming out with a paper? Are you going to come out with some research? How are you going to back up? Since in the field, you saved all the folks in New Rochelle. How do we actually take it to the next?
Going.
Okay.
And then later we'll go to
Zelenko, the hero of the...
Sorry.
Delivers the weapon to the battlefield, you have good results. And the antibiotic is there.
Okay,
sorry. So zinc is a positive charged ion. The cell membrane is like cholesterol, basically, oil. So the zinc cannot cross into the cell. And that's a problem because that's where the virus is. So what hydroxychloroquine does, are you ready? It opens the door and lets the zinc in. That's it. In other words, you have a kill weapon, but it can't get to the battlefield.
So it's really important to not just take the hydroxychloroquine because we've known, if you guys haven't known this, zinc is, but it doesn't get into your cells very well. Mm-hmm. But he's saying that with the hydroxychloroquine, it actually is an immune suppressant. Mm-hmm. So what happens with most people with the COVID is their immune systems go wacko and they actually start to attack their bodies. So you need to bring down that immune response.
Right.
And so, and a lot of people get confused on, but don't you want a high immune system? No, we're not talking about a higher immune system. We're talking about the immune system going haywire. Exactly. It stops the immune system from going haywire and going berserko and killing your own cells, thinking that your own cells are actual bad cells when they're good cells.
Right.
And so opening this up, the zinc is actually, what he is saying is what kills the virus.
Yeah.
The hydroxychloroquine opens your cells.
Lets down the wall guard.
Right.
Hydroxychloroquine opens the door, delivers the weapon to the battlefield, you have good results. And the antibiotic is there, azithromycin, because we know that when lungs are damaged by infection, they become vulnerable.
To pneumonia.
Susceptible to bacterial pneumonias. So the antibiotic is there as a guard, so to speak, by the front door. If the bacteria wants to get in, it kills it before it takes hold.
It's great.
That's it.
Wow.
And
can I just go do some... Yeah, but hey, let's go. I want to ask you just quick questions. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a commercial break. Let's do this. Dr. If you can stay. How are you going to back up, since in the field you saved all the folks in New Rochelle? How do we actually take it to the next level so you can combat this relentless media narrative that you're a huckster and that this is a dangerous thing that Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, the War Room Pandemic guys, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, that everybody's pushing?
First of all, correction, it's not New Rochelle, it's in Monroe, New York, just to be correct.
Okay, Monroe.
And thanks. And the way I really have no patience for political whores that sell their souls for money and politics. So I don't listen to them. but what I do, I'll say the following. History and science is objective truth. History will prove who was on the right side of history, who was on the wrong side of history. Galileo and Copernicus, it took them 50 years for their ideas to be accepted. I hope it doesn't take 50 years. Now with the internet, hopefully it just takes a day to spread the truth, and people will see. Now, I am coming out with a study, yes. It's going to be published in the highest journals, I hope. And the only reason why I didn't come out with it before, it's only been 4.5 weeks, and I've been seeing 100 patients a day. You know, Dr. Dudier in France has 800 people on his team. I have 5. I mean, I was working 21-hour days with 8 kids that I have. So I don't understand when I was supposed to come up with the data while I'm in the middle of treating hundreds of patients. But now things have calmed down. I put together the data. It's being analyzed by the highest level researchers. I'm not a researcher. I'm just a simple doctor on the front line. And the data's going to come out, and it's going to show the following. 95% reduction of death. 95% reduction in intubation and hospitalization. This data is exactly consistent, actually it's a little better, than Dr. Dudier, Raoul in France, in Marseille, France, where he doesn't use zinc, but still he intervenes early, and he had, I think, 88% reduction in death. And the government of Brazil actually implemented my protocols 3.5 weeks ago in a few hospitals and clinics, and they had a 95% reduction in death. They published the study. So now you have 3 continents, 3 doctors, groups who don't know each other, basically, all coming out and saying, and look at the great novel idea If you treat early, you get better results. Wow, genius. It's unbelievable. Now, you're going to ask me, why is common sense not ruling? Well, I'll tell you the following. This is an election year. The president, for good or bad, and it doesn't matter my politics, it's irrelevant, but he came out backing this drug. It's a matter of record. He said it. I have a good feeling about it. I think it's going to be the biggest game changer. This happens to be an election year. Half the country doesn't want him to be president. It's been relentless war on his reputation, right? So anything that they can do to undermine, not to give him a victory, they'll do. It's just simple politics. It's logic, okay? So they rather see the enemies of humanity, I would call them, rather see this country's economy burn, people die, than to give the president a win. That's number one. Number two, go ahead.
No, go on. Keep going. Keep on the roll. Keep going.
I thought through this, by the way. It's a multifactorial what's going on. Number two, listen, the drug companies have invested millions of dollars. I like the drug companies. They save life. And they invested millions of dollars, billions of dollars in development of treatments and vaccines. And it's great. I didn't want to hurt anyone. But the fact is, I came up with a solution, but the $20 essentially resolved the problem. I'm sure that's not a very good thing for people that invested billions of dollars. And I'm sorry, but my focus is not billions of dollars, it's human life.
Thank you.
Number three, there's a lot of ego in the medical community. You know, some Hasidic doctor in upstate New York thinks of a treatment for $20 where these Harvard researchers that sit and behind a desk thinking of ideas weren't able to. Could you imagine? And number four, which is a real big problem, doctors are afraid of liability. They're afraid to use these drugs because they're not familiar with them, or because of the negative PR, because of the litigious nature of the society. So there's a lot of obstacles in using these drugs. The only thing is, none of it matters to me.
That's good.
And I'll tell you why. Two years ago, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I lost my right lung. It was called pulmonary artery sarcoma. It has 100% death rate. And for some reason, I'm still around. Doesn't make sense. So I'm looking at life from the other world in. I had already said goodbye to my children, essentially, emotionally. So when someone goes through that and is on the razor's edge of life and death, so then you realize that's really important. So I have no fear except for God. I really learned how to think outside the box. I actually developed my own treatment, believe it or not. And I realized it's not me, it's God. So it's, there's a saying from one of my mentors that he was being tortured by the KGB. And they took out a gun, they put it to his head, and they said, this gun has made many people talk. So he answered them, maybe someone who has one world and many gods. But someone who has one God and two worlds is ineffective.
A genius. Okay, let me ask you. Keep going. That's a great quote.
So all this opposition by these, I don't know, I call them like maggots or whores. I don't know what it is. It's this epitome of evil that put politics and profit before human life. I have a zero tolerance for, and they're irrelevant to me. If that answers your question.
Let's go. New York City. The New York folks are the savviest and most common sense in the world. Since the word got clearly out on this with Rudy, and we were on WABC, and Rudy was on WABC, and you had a big group that was saying, "Hey, this is something you ought to think about if your doctor recommends it." And we noticed that the doctor-nurses team did not have the casualty rates they had in Italy and others. Was it used, you think, in New York? Because I'm hearing now that people are saying, oh, it wasn't used or where it was used. I think the New York Post has got today where it was used in the New York City hospitals. They didn't see any results or any positive results. What do you know about what actually happened in the hospitals and down on the front line of the battlefield in New York City?
Listen, I don't think, unfortunately, when someone is at the stage where they're on a respirator with acute respiratory distress syndrome, no matter what you do, there's going to be a 50 to 60% mortality rate. So has there been some success? Maybe. But really...
But I'm saying as a prophylactic. I'm saying as a prophylactic for the doctors and nurses. Was it used as a prophylactic for doctors and nurses?
Sure. Any smart doctor that I know of is on this stuff, including myself.
Doctor, I just got to say it's been a great joy listening to you because, first of all, we can just tell you're just such a solid guy. You bring up a KGB story to make your point. You are on the team, my friend. One thing I wanted to ask you, the FDA keeps putting out these guidelines, sort of making doctors feel a little bit threatened about prescribing this stuff. And I, in fact, talked to a doctor up in Westchester, one of the county health commissioners, about 2.5 weeks ago, and he said that they were just terrified about even prescribing it because of all of the messaging that they were getting from the FBI and even from the governor at that point.
FBI?
I think he said
Go
FBI.
forward another
Okay.
week, and they were prescribing it to everybody. But they're saying, the FDA is saying they don't want to see it outside of a hospital setting or a clinical trial due to heart risk. I think you kind of answered that, but.
First of all, I'm in direct contact. Stephen Hahn, the head of the FDA, literally called me on my cell phone. And I've been dealing with him directly. And actually, I organized it with a group of a very large hospital consortium from Long Island. Can't mention the name yet until next week because we're coming out with a study, a research study we're going to start, where we're going to treat 750 patients. It's going to be a randomized controlled study, the kind that all these researchers worship. And it's going to take a few months. So, listen, let me give you an analogy. It's very important. Imagine Washington, D.C. is being carpet bombed, right? And would it make sense for Dr. Fauci to say, I think we need to do a study to see which bullets work the best. It may take 4 months, but we need to study it. Or would you use any bullet available to knock the plane out of the sky? So what's the difference? The difference is that we're being carpet bombed by an invisible enemy, so we have a perception of peacetime. But in reality, this is not peacetime. This is battlefield medicine. This is World War III. So to wait 4 months to do the results of the study and let an excess of a few 100,000 people die unnecessarily, I think is a crime against humanity. So,
Dr. Zelenko, we've got to bounce, but we won't.
So I'm going to stop that there, but there's a couple points that he made that really stuck out to me. And one of them was that he said he had one of his lungs removed, and he was working with one lung on the most dangerous lung disease that is the most...
What a hero. I mean, what an absolute hero.
Contagious in modern history. And he's doing this all by faith.
And he says it's God.
In God. He believes
it's a $20 treatment.
God gave him the answer, and I have to agree with him. God gave him the answer, and God has protected him, obviously.
And it's a Jew.
Being consistently around coronavirus patients and not to have contracted it.
100 a day.
And not to have contracted it himself. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't go on and say, it's because I wear a mask or because I spray the room down or because no, he's like, I'm on hydroxychloroquine, man, and it's probably the zinc. You know what I mean? I'm taking it, and my body is able to fight this thing off as a prophylactic. Okay,
the lady says God saved him for a purpose.
Absolutely. A couple more things, and forget all the crazy ads here on Daily Mail. Wuhan laboratory scientists did absolutely crazy things to alter coronavirus and enabled it to infect humans. Most of the time, if you touch things, they will open. And then there's another one. We'll just stay there.
Okay.
To alter coronavirus and enable it to infect humans, Russian microbiologist claims. World-renowned expert Professor Peter Chemikov made claims about the labs. He thinks new regulations will come into control, work with dangerous viruses. And he goes, this leading world-renowned expert claimed that they were studying, not with malicious intent, but to create an HIV vaccine. He said, in China, scientists at the Wuhan laboratory have been actively involved.
You create a super virus by trying to find
a vaccine for a super virus.
HIV.
Yeah. In China, scientists at the Wuhan laboratory have been actively involved in the development of various coronavirus variants over the 10 years. Moreover, they did this supposedly not with the aim of creating pathogenic variants, but to study their pathogenicity. So they're saying they did absolutely crazy things, in my opinion. For example, inserts in the genome, which gave the virus the ability to infect human cells. Now, all this has been analyzed. The picture of the possible creation of the current coronavirus is slowly emerging. He says there are several inserts, that is, substitutions of the natural sequence of the genome, which gave it special properties. It is interesting that the Chinese and the Americans who work with them published all their works in the open. I even wonder why this background comes to people very slowly. I think that an investigation will nevertheless be initiated. It's too early to blame people. He said the Chinese scientists created variants of the virus without malicious intent, possibly aiming for an HIV vaccine.
Which is the only conclusion that you could come to if you think it's not malicious.
And you inserted an HIV strand into a coronavirus.
Now, I would like to state for the record, like 2 weeks ago, I said they put an HIV strand in there, and Leah wouldn't let me say that for a surety because she was afraid that we would get taken off, but I said it
YouTube is taking down videos and content creators who go against anything the WHO says. Yeah. In the situation where there is, we said it before in the beginning, because that was what came out. And then
it has a strand of HIV in it. How did it get there?
In the situation where there is not enough information that has been supported and checked by science, we think it's unacceptable, groundless to accuse anyone. But it's possible. It's possible. So I wanted to share that with you.
And the HIV strand, I'm assuming, is the strand that allowed it to get to the human cells, because without that, it would not have been able to get to humans.
I'm not sure, because coronaviruses can't go into humans.
Right.
Jennifer Zhang, who I follow on Twitter, tweeted out at 2:58 today that the vice director of the Hong Kong state TV, Hong Kong satellite television, says North Korea leader Kim Jong-un is dead. I do not know for a fact. I do not know.
No, she's not the only one. That's just the one that's the most trusted source that you have. But a lot of other people are saying it.
Korean Peninsula experts believe Kim Jong-un to have passed away.
Now, originally, the rumors were that he had the virus. Now, you said the rumors today are around him having had some sort of surgery.
What the rumor has it that he was having open heart surgery, but his doctor that they brought in from China had the virus.
Okay.
So it's possible that he had some complications from the virus. So we're throwing that out there because it's definitely big news.
And we can't confirm it yet. And I don't know, because we're talking about North Korea, will you ever be able to confirm it?
It took 3 days for his dad to be declared dead.
Okay, yeah, but that's a long time, though. I mean, seriously.
Newly filed court documents have exonerating evidence for Michael Flynn.
Yes!
New documents filed under seal in federal court include exculpatory information about former White House National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. According to a report, the documents were filed by the Justice Department on Friday and allegedly include exonerating evidence for Flynn. Hallelujah.
The angels are singing.
Sources told the Federalist Sean Davis the documents also allegedly show evidence of malfeasance by the FBI during its investigation of Flynn and will reflect poorly on the FBI. It is not clear when the documents may be unsealed and made available to the public. According to the FBI official, FBI General Dana Bonette led the charge internally against DOJ's disclosure of the new materials. Bonette had personally signed off on one of the surveillance warrants against the former campaign advisor Carter Page. Flynn resigned from his position. We talked about this. So we'll see. Trump is still waiting to see what's happening. He could pardon Flynn at any moment. No clear heir in sight as Kim Jong-un's fate remains uncertain. Ever since the 1948 founding of North Korea by Kim Il-sung, three things have been a certainty: regime brutality, the establishment of the Kim family's rule, and the smooth transition of power from one generation to the next. But if a Facebook posting by a prominent South Korean official with close ties to China is true, brutality will remain a certainty, but the other two may be challenged. The West noticed something amiss April 15th, the most important national holiday in North Korea, equivalent to our Christmas, originally established in 1968 to celebrate the founder Kim Il-sung's birthday. It was renamed the Day of the Sun 3 years after his 1994 death at the age of 82. To this day, North Korea forces its citizens to worship Kim Il-sung, like literal worship him. Like, seriously, he is God. They are required by law to display pictures of him in their homes. Because of April 15th's importance, the first ever non-appearance, Kim Jong-un was not there. It did not go unnoticed. Okay? Within this hermit kingdom. Noted by Tae Yong-ho, a North Korean defector now in the South. It is impossible to know anything about the leader's real health status unless one is an immediate family member or a bodyguard. But what now has North Korea under the microscope is a Facebook post by Chang Sung-min. He is a former staff member under the late Kim Dae-jung, South Korea's president. While Kim Dae-jung embarked upon his infamous Sunshine Policy that sought to appease Pyongyang, earning him a visit to North Korea and the Nobel Peace Prize, it did nothing to change the course of blah, 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 blah. So he shared his post that reported that Kim Jong-un had undergone surgery and slipped into a coma. Remaining incapacitated, an urgent call allegedly went out to Beijing for medical assistance. That team rushed to Pyongyang, but was allegedly unable to revive him. The next day, Chang backtracked on this, saying the dictator was still alive but comatose. Other reports have circulated that following heart surgery on April 12th, Kim Jong-un is in grave danger. Whether Kim Jong-un has suffered a health scare or not, a discussion about succession is warranted. It talks about for 2 generations of the King family, when word went out that the king is dead, it was followed by long live the king, preordained crown prince. During the last decade of founder Kim Il-sung's 46-year rule, he paved the way for his son to take over. But there is, I don't think people know what the 2 previous Kims recognized. The only uncertainty about their deaths was when, causing them to designate successors. The reality never hit the youthful Kim Jong-un, who designated no crown prince.
Stuart the Brit says, but his sister, whom will take over, is totally evil, not good. It is possible that his sister, I think it's, if they're okay, if they don't have a gender issue there,
I don't know.
I think that she is the most plausible.
Well, remember, worried his half-brother Kim Young-nam, a former heir apparent, might still pose a threat, he had him assassinated. But now, in the event of the king died, who linked to Kim's family bloodline might lay claim to the throne, again due to lack of Western humor and the fact that much of Kim Jong-un's personal life has been kept private. Little is really known about his children. He is said to have an illegitimate son, close to teenage years, but if so, the son would have little, if any, ability to do much. The first is his sister. She has often traveled with him at age 32. She's a novice diplomat. Another candidate is Kim Pi-il, 65, the paternal half-brother of Kim Jong-il, and thus Kim Jong-un's uncle. So there could be
a war. Here's the deal. I find this an unfortunate development, as Stuart the Brit said about his sister or anyone else. Regardless of what you think about Kim Jong-un, he really had this kind of westernized desire to be accepted. He liked Trump. He liked the fame that came with Trump. He was willing to talk to South Korea. I mean, we saw some huge developments that may seem small but weren't. And those could all go back depending on who takes over after. This is not good news for North Korea.
China has dispatched a team to North Korea, including medical experts who advise North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. 3 people familiar with the situation told Reuters the trip by the Chinese doctors and officials comes amid conflicting reports of Kim's health. So we don't know. We don't know which way we're going with that one. Let's see.
No, I don't have a gut feeling one way or the other. It's disturbing to me to think about.
Oh, here's the video we were talking about.
Even though he's a dictator.
You can decide what he was referring to.
As I've not seen heat or light.
I think it's a great thing to look at. I mean, okay.
Respectfully, sir, you're the president, and people tuning into these briefings, they want to get information and guidance and want to know what to do. They're not looking for rumors.
I'm the president, and you're fake news. And you know what I'll say to you? I'll say very nicely, I know you well. I know you well, because I know the guy. I see what he writes. He's a total faker. So, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? It's just a suggestion from a brilliant lab by a very, very smart, perhaps brilliant man. He's talking about sun, he's talking about heat, and you see the numbers. So that's it. That's all I have. I'm just here to present talent. I'm here to present ideas, because we want ideas to get rid of this thing. And if heat is good, and if sunlight is good, that's a great thing as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead.
Mr. President.
So that was during the same press conference. He wasn't saying take disinfectant internally.
Well, actually, you know who is culpable if somebody does this, is the mainstream media who has
saying
gone out
that he said
saying that he said that. So if somebody does take a disinfectant internally,
it would be their fault.
It would be their fault because Trump never said that. He never even alluded to it.
Right. All right, so mother arrested and married in Idaho for letting her kids play at a park.
Are you
serious?
Mother, you gotta be kidding me. Why? Wait. Wait, wait, where are you at?
As a person, does this make sense to you? As a person, not as a police officer, as a person, does this make sense to you?
His mother is being arrested for being in person with kids. Let her kids in the playground. Be arrested.
But Michael Avenatti's out on bail because of the coronavirus. But they're going to put this chick in a jail because she's letting her kids play at a playground.
Anyone in Meridian?
And there's a lot of kids that seem to be at that playground. Nobody else seemed to be arrested.
What you're doing is illegal.
The governor told us last night the lockdown was over.
It's pure insanity.
He's like, oh, man, it's over, bro. Don't get it.
The governor told us last night the lockdown was over, but yeah.
Here's the deal. I want to present to you a sound-minded solution here. All right? This just goes to show their plan to strong-arm and scare people into doing what they want them to do. Most people who disobey an ordinance, which is not a law, by the way, get fined. Okay? The police officer takes her information and says, you're going to probably be this is going to be followed up, and you will probably be issued a fine. Okay? I'm not even saying that the fine is right. What I'm saying is the fact that they go straight to arresting these people just goes to show the tyrannical intent and fear-mongering behind. It's not that they don't want this lady at a playground playing with her children. They want to make an example of her to scare the rest of society into doing what they have to. Because if you just find somebody...
Does this make sense to you? The virus is killed in sunlight. So obviously the virus isn't at the playground, on the playground equipment. So it's probably one of the safer places to be. Maybe you just say, don't play on the playground on a cloudy day.
Now, here's the deal.
Okay, just play in the sun.
If a park is closed, okay, and they've got like this park is closed sign up, honestly, you should respect that.
You shouldn't go around the tape.
You shouldn't go around the tape.
Right.
Right? But if it's just an open park and you're just told you shouldn't be going to these parks, but even if it's a closed park, you don't get arrested if it's a public park. Right. Okay? If it's a private park, you're trespassing.
Right.
Right? But if it's a public park, you can't arrest people for being at this park.
Okay, so Vernon Jones is a Democrat state representative in Georgia who has had to resign because he supported Donald Trump on an issue here, and he was received with so much backlash, and it's just pretty sad.
He was kicked out of the party, wasn't he?
No, he hasn't been kicked out. He had to resign.
This is part of his exclusive interview with us.
And I will continue to let the Democratic Party know that the bigotry within his party is hurting African Americans, and more African Americans are thinking independently.
Now, Jones says he has not been promised a position. He has not been in communication with the Trump administration about any political future. Meanwhile, here in Georgia, his resignation is effective today. Reporting live outside the state capitol, Haley Mason, CBS 46 News.
So this is Vernon Jones, and it's just a sad state where we're at, where you can't just say, hey, I support something. And he says, I am a Georgia state representative and a lifelong Democrat. And but in this election, I'm casting my vote for real Donald Trump. I didn't leave the Democrat Party, it left me.
Hello, America. This is Vernon Jones, and I'm a proud member of the Georgia House of Representatives.
But I've also been a lifelong Democrat too. But today, I've announced my support and endorsement of Donald J. Trump's campaign re-election. Now, let me be clear about one thing. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. But one would say now, why would a black man support Donald Trump? Well, I would reverse that. Why wouldn't a black man endorse Donald Trump? Isn't he the president that ushered in the lowest unemployment rate among blacks before the pandemic crisis? Isn't he the president that signed the Criminal Justice Reform Act? And finally, isn't he the president that overwhelmingly supported financially historical black colleges in which I'm a proud graduate of North Carolina Central University? I 100% support Donald Trump. And I want to call on every patriot, every great American out there across this country, regardless of your race or whatever, gender, orientation. I want to ask all of you, young people, seniors, all in between, join me in re-electing Donald J. Trump as a president, our next president, our re-elected president of the United States. Peace out, America.
So
he seems pretty
was
happy.
he wasn't forced to resign.
No.
But he did so anyway.
Right. He says, and then he was on Glenn Beck, which says, I'm going to continue to call this party out.
Continue to call this party out. I'm not going to be silenced. I'm going to take a stand. And when I got that support from all around the country, even from my district and from people all across this country, patriots and great Americans said, Vernon, don't give up. At least finish your term. And I said, you know what? The hell with this. I am coming back, and I'm going to be in those Democrats' face. We're going to be going back into our session in June. There is an immigration bill that targets those violent crimes committed by illegals, where they can not have those sanctuary seated, that the police department will be reporting them to ICE and have them taken out of this country. So I'm a co-sponsor of that bill. And I want to get an opportunity to stay on that floor, and I want to speak about that bill and finish it out, finish the rest of this term.
So I just told you he is resigning. This is from 8 hours ago with Glenn Beck. He says he's not resigning.
Hot dog, very good.
He's going to stay there and help to fight, stand up and fight, and call these things out. So
that's good.
Pretty cool. Here's a story you won't make the mainstream headlines from Dave Rubin. And I think
and more and more African Americans are thinking independently.
Yeah, we played that.
All right, that's the one I tweeted out. All right. So I thought that was really cool. But there is another woman who supported him in Michigan, a Democrat, and she's been raked over the coals because she thanks Donald Trump for supporting hydroxychloroquine, and says that it saved her life. Did we show this?
You're not allowed to talk about something that saved your life if the president endorses it.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
So remember Nancy Antoinette with her $24,000 fridge full of ice cream on James Corbin's show? Americans are losing their jobs since the virus rocked the economy. Nancy Pelosi blocks funding for people to keep getting paychecks. Remember, the PPP, the Payment Protection Plan, whatever, was supposed to help small businesses, and they needed some money, and she's like, "What? She really held that up."
And she held it up because she wanted to make sure that her agendas were within the bill as well. She wasn't going to get it unless it was her way.
The Trump admin came out with this
We turn now to that $350 billion fund to help small businesses and its workers get through the shutdown.
It will be up to Congress to restock it. But Democrats blocking that move this morning.
They asked for $250 billion in 48 hours. I said, well, I don't think so. They objected, and I congratulate the Senate Democrats.
Speaker Pelosi, what are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate candy.
Thousands have been forced to wait for hours at food banks all across the country.
This is chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here. We just got to restock the ice cream.
We just got it restocked.
You don't want to eat up everything all at one time. I can't do it much longer. I'm trying so hard.
We were, shall we say, enjoying.
Having to admit that, we're starving, and
I like it better than anything else.
Taping this segment, there are 22 million people out of work.
This specific program is about stopping job losses today.
This is hurting people bad.
Other people in our family go for some other flavors, but
Right now, it's survival mode. You don't know where that next something else gonna come from.
I don't know what I would have done if ice cream were not invented. I just wonder.
I don't even know where to go with that
Wow.
She's evil. I think Sunday we'll talk about Ecuador there. Nancy Pelosi, Democrats will hold hearings on dismissal of Dr. Rick Bright. This is explosive. And then, of course, there's going to be more hearings because they really don't care about you. They obviously have nothing better on their hands to do here. But Dr. Bright, I guess she didn't like the hydroxychloroquine or whatever. So I think that's kind of, I think when we go over here to some of my other Zero Hedge articles to see if there's anything else you guys need to know. Oh, just updates. So as we sign off here, New York City's hospitalizations fall to lowest level in a month. Italy reports fewest deaths in 5 weeks. Let's just kind of go over some of these. Singapore reports actually an alarming jump in new cases. U.S. death toll tops 50,000. Tokyo reports 150 new cases. Asked companies to extend Golden Week holiday. Sydney forced to shutter 3 newly reopened beaches. Florida death toll passes 1,000. China rejects U.S. request to examine the Wuhan lab. India reports a record single-day jump in cases. Mac Hancock says no set date for Bojo to return. Chinese tests using blood of recovered patients show promising results. Global Times continues pushing narrative that U.S. responsible for virus. That's the Chinese Global Times. New York not on list of 16 states with reopening plans at all. UK deaths jump after 2 days of declines. Some Muslim majority countries see restrictions as Ramadan begins. FDA warns hydroxychloroquine shouldn't be taken outside of a hospital setting. Oh, Jack. No, that's bad. That Trump
doctors, are you telling me that doctors can't prescribe? I mean, that's ridiculous. Off label. And then these doctors are going to be afraid.
The FDA is really trying to kill people. They're the people who tell you can't drink raw milk. Trump denies telling Kemp he approved a plan to reopen the economy. That's, I believe, Georgia. And then Australia to keep borders shut for at least 3 more months. Indonesia also reports jump in cases. Russia reports 5,000 new cases.
They are literally, here's the deal, guys.
With the hydroxychloroquine.
They are trying to kill people. Exactly. They want people to die. They want the numbers to rise because their entire agenda from day one was to fearmonger everybody into giving up. Give me the vaccine. You make billions of dollars. And I will surrender everything. That is what they want. That is why they are fear-mongering. They want the tyranny. They want it all. Okay? So when they say that hydroxychloroquine should not be prescribed outside of a hospital setting, and we know that you are only allowed to be admitted into a hospital once you are at that point where it really doesn't help that much, then they are effectively saying, we want people to die.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Right. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. Let's see.
But the good news is, I believe that God has anointed this Hasidic doctor, Vladimir, I think is his first name, I don't remember his last name, and it's going to get out there.
Right. Yeah, I think back over here, just to kind of give you an idea of these states, the IHME pushes safe opening dates for Georgia, Florida, Arizona, and Kansas to late June, North Dakota to July. The Institute of Health Metrics updated its coronavirus model on Wednesday and pushed back its recommended safe reopening dates for several states into the second half of June and pushed the state date for North Dakota back to July 19th. It was second update to the model in 2 days. According to the update, the IHME that accompanied Wednesday's release, the recommended safe date to begin reopening Florida was pushed back to June 14th, almost 2 weeks later than the safe date of June 1st, announced in the April 17th update. Similarly, the safe date to begin reopening Arizona was pushed back to June 26th, 2 weeks and 4 days later than the safe date of June 9th in the April 17th update. And the recommended safe date to begin reopening Kansas was pushed back to June 21st, 3 weeks later than the safe date recommended. In Georgia, where Governor Brian Kemp announced on Monday he would be authorizing a number of non-essential businesses. We talked about this, hair salons, fitness studios to open on Friday, and even tattoo parlors, which I think like fitness studios and tattoo parlors would be like the two you wouldn't need to open right away. You know, dog grooming makes sense. Hair salons make sense. People need their hair cut. You could really social distance with haircuts and things like that. You cannot in a gym. I just don't understand the gyms being open, but whatever. I on a scale of importance. You can go outside to get exercise.
The issue that we're seeing is that it's like they're ready to open gyms, but you're not allowed to go outside.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like, seriously? Mm-hmm. You open up outside first. And as a matter of fact, you can't close down. You cannot shut down outside. Right. Hang on, let me get to a couple of comments, because I know you're still reading there, but these are going to go too fast. I'll miss them. Britt Boston says, Michelle, a Scottish hospital refused to admit an elderly woman, and she died of suspected COVID-19 2 days later. AK Peter says, in Germany, restrictions going out were erased on the day Ramadan began. What an extraordinary coincidence. Very good point. Squeaky Clean says they could not start a world war, so they used biological weapons instead. Podum says vaccine, tracking ID, digital, all related. Britt Baza asks, Michelle, do you reckon that the world government wants to get people shopping online to keep tabs for tax reasons, hence the lockdown?
That's one reason.
And it'd be a very small one, but yes, it definitely helps them. Ross Boyd says this is their last big push, with indictments coming soon. Hallelujah, I hope you're right. Stuart the Brit says people in England are getting it now. They will stop complying. It is already happening here. And that's the thing. That's what we're seeing here as well. People are like, listen, we went so far and now we're done.
There's a difference between things that are common sense and things that go way too far, you know. And we have to go, there's a ticker counter to get into Lowe's and Walmart, but they're lessening their hours.
So Marty Secondine wanted to know, give us an update on what is going on in Russia. So Russia has had an increase in cases as well. I think that the bigger story in Russia right now is oil. I think that is the top topic for that. And we covered that, I think, extensively at the start of the show. But to recap, they went into an oil war with Saudi Arabia, and it didn't go so well for them or anyone else in the rest of this world, except for people buying gas.
Any country who funds their country through the sale of oil is suffering, and Russia is definitely one of those. But here's some updates from Russia. This is from Moscow's Interfax Newswire. More than 5,800 new COVID cases have been identified in Russia in the past 24 hours, bringing the country's coronavirus tally to 68,600. A total of 5,849 new cases have been confirmed in 82 regions in Russia in the past 24 hours, including contacts with patients without clinical symptoms standing at 2,697. Given the last increase, Russia currently has 68,000, blah, 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 blah. A total of 29,057 new COVID cases have been recorded in Moscow. It says that the Renaissance capital says Russia will follow the Asian scenario of suppressing the virus. Given that the quarantine measures appear to be adequate and proportionate, Russia hits its peak within a week, which is crazy. Adequate and proportionate. Russia, what's very interesting is countries are doing these vast countrywide measures, but states. China just did Wuhan and a province.
Right.
So it's very interesting, the differences there, as more governments rapidly expand their surveillance. Okay, yeah, so then we've got everybody. Guys, I got to tell you about the surveillance. People are, they've got drones up in the air, sending people tickets for being out. When Donald Trump came out and said, hey, the sunlight kills the virus, y'all. It really does. Fresh air and sunshine is what's going to help you the most. For real. This an Icelandic cop who normally tracks mobsters is now doing contract tracing on people infected with coronavirus. But Iceland is able to keep theirs under control because they're just doing contact, and what they're doing is
tracing.
They're doing quarantine of people who have it rather than quarantine people who do not have it. And we seem to be in a place where everybody is considered to have it when they don't have it, and so common sense is being thrown out the window.
But interestingly enough, I think we're finding out with the massive testing that they're rolling out in the United States and have been doing,
Yeah.
a lot more people have it than they thought, which lowers the death percentage.
Exactly, which lowers the death percentage.
It takes the scariness away from it, but then also makes you go, And
I didn't really want to scare you guys with this because I actually don't want you freaking out about it. And I really appreciate, if you had to lean on either side, I'd rather you not be freaking out about it.
Yeah.
And so if I pick a side, I'm going to pick with the, hey, let's open up the economy people, just because some of these totalitarian Nazis out there are just taking way too much control. However, they have studied people's lungs on the Diamond Princess, who had no symptoms.
They were
They
asymptomatic.
found lesions on their lungs already, like with no symptoms. And so just because you are asymptomatic doesn't mean that your body isn't damaged in some way.
And it is really damaging lungs from people who have the symptoms and people who do not have the symptoms. And that might prove a problem when you're 60 or 70 or 80, So,
Yeah.
All right. So that's kind of the update. Ellen, I did check my Twitter. I don't know if that's the same video that we just played. I'm afraid I can't pull it up in the right window for everybody else. But I can tweet it out. So if you guys want to see, it's about that mother arrested in Meridian that Leah played the link of in Idaho. She sent another link there. So I can tweet that out as soon as the show is over. So you guys can follow us on Twitter there and check it out. Leah, it was a great show. Thank you guys for being here. We love you guys. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it is actually the truth. We'll be back here on Sunday for our 1 p.m. EU, UK world news, where it's going to be a lot more of this. It's not going away.
So I just want to read this line here. The plague didn't cause this economic crash. And I really feel like everybody keeps wanting to go back to the way it was before. There is no way it was before.
Yeah.
Okay? Because the dam had cracks in it. And somebody came and kind of took a good sledgehammer to the dam that already had cracks. If they had just sledgehammered, the virus had sledgehammered the dam, it might have been repairable or something. But there was already so many cracks,
ready to blow.
Cracks in the dam. The dam was ready to blow.
And we've been saying it, especially this past last year. The economy is getting ready to blow. You need to be buying gold. Like, this is what you need to be doing.
Before the virus, we were telling you guys something was going to... There's so many cracks in the system. There's so many cracks in the system. The system's going to blow. All it takes is one black swan event. And people have been predicting this. It just takes one Jenga piece. And then it all falls. So, but the lockdown response certainly accelerated and amplified and ramified it. The crash happened because we built a hyper complex, overscaled, just-in-time economic system with all its ecological redundancy edited out for the sake of efficiency, making it hyper-fragile. Hyper-fragile. There's no going back to it was so hard, hyper-fragile. What we need to do is now focus on what can we do so that the future is not so fragile. So the future is strong. Everybody wants to go back to the way it was, but got to think forward now. You got to think and pray and live forward, because what I'm seeing from a lot of my good, awesome friends who are on the truther movement or the red pill movement or the farming movement, y'all keep wanting to try to just go back. Literally, the cat's out of the bag. You can't get it back in.
Well, and
it's not going back in.
It's never too early to turn around. And we were headed in one trajectory.
To an abyss.
And everybody that's saying that they're freaking out about this happening right now, it's like, you wanted it to just keep getting worse before we turned it around? Or do we do it now before it would have been more painful for it to happen later rather than for it to happen sooner. So it was going to happen.
Right.
Whether it was this virus or a lockdown or you name it, the economy was going to...
The system's basic power module, the fossil fuel, was failing on a cost basis.
Yes.
And we tried to compensate that with debt. $20 trillion in debt.
Can't do it.
The debt got out of hand. In both sheer quantity and from the dishonest games that the bankers and the politicians were playing with it.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, it's the lockdown.
Don't yell.
It's the lockdown. Oh my gosh. No. The lockdown is a magnifying glass on all the problems that we have. Okay?
Exactly.
All of this happened for the reason that most things happen in history. It seemed like a good idea at the time. The old system is permanently broken. We're having a hard time recognizing that, plague or no plague. Many activities have flunked the scale challenge and will not come back to running the way they used to. Generally, anything organized at the giant scale. To my farming friends, you should be saying, instead of arguing and getting so upset, I can see you every day. Okay, I get it. Go forward. Move your feet forward.
Right.
Find answers. You are always pointing the finger at the politicians for coming up with all the problems, but now you're doing the same thing because you want the government to do something for you, even though you don't realize that's what you're asking them to do. Okay? Right now, today, this is what you do. You tell people, start farming, get your animals, get your pigs, get your chickens, get your garden. Start a local business. Think about how you can come out of this stronger. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to have my business at least for another 18, 24 months. What am I going to do? I'm not preaching to the choir. I am the choir. What am I going to do? I run a pet sitting business based 99% on people going on vacation. Nobody's going on vacation.
And another 1% on people working.
Exactly. Nobody's going on vacation for the month of March and April. Praise God they did in January and February. Only God sent them, I guess. But my business is not coming back. It's not going to jump back up. It's not going to be one of those where Mike DeWine says you can go back to work. I'm going to be like, yay! No, it's not going to happen because other states aren't going to be open. People don't want to travel. They're not going to go. I don't want them to go on cruises. Gosh darn it. And I surely don't want people going to Europe right now, or especially not to China. Okay, because I don't want you coming back. If you go, stay. Right? So I got to think outside the box, and I got to be led by the Holy Spirit. How are you going to provide for me, God? Okay? What am I supposed to do now? We are use it as an opportunity. When life gives you a bunch of lemons, now I got to find some sugar and some water. And a sand. Okay?
So, when you're done, Patriot Gallery has some comments she wants me to read.
Go ahead.
There's several.
Okay, well, many activities have flunked the scale challenge and will not come back to running the way they used to. Generally, anything organized at the giant scale, global supply chains, global corporations that depend on them, fracking for shale oil, big institutions like colleges and even public school systems, commercial aviation and tourism, the auto industry, show business, including Disney Empire and things like that, suburbia as a general proposition, skyscrapers and mega structures, shopping malls, pension funds, insurance companies, mega banks, and of course, medical conglomerates. We're deceived by Amazon, which appears to be successful at the moment because it is filling a vacuum that Amazon will also eventually fall into. Amazon's business model is a joke. The model is every item purchased makes a separate journey by truck to a customer. That's a sell signal to me. The lockdown is making people crazy. It's one thing to be stuck in the house with spouses and relatives you can barely stand under normal circumstances, but to see your financial support systems melt down at the same time, along with the implications of your hopes and dreams, is a pretty big shock. Naturally, so many people want to bust out of the waking nightmare and get going and return to action to see at least see whether what they were doing before all this happened might restart. I don't know about that. They might flock back to restaurants to spend some time at the fresh minted $1,200, and then what? Where will the next $1,200 come from? Modern monetary theory? Then a new guaranteed basic income from what? From taxes paid by businesses generating what profits? From people too broke to buy goods and services? I don't think so. Times have changed, and we're going to have to get some new ideas that fit the new times. But the craziness out there is very likely to start expressing itself differently as we discover the urge to action does not produce the desired result of returning back to normal.
No, but here's the deal. The old normal wasn't worth saving.
Here, I've got one of my own.
The new normal is going to be
the mule
better
business.
Eventually.
Seriously, the mule business.
Mules. That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Patriot Gallery was going
to just click on the thread and go to the blog and read it.
It's very short.
Okay, instead of reading your comments, you mean?
Well, I just copy and paste from the blog.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that. So, Patriot Gallery wrote a blog, a short one. And she said she's not going to do her normal video recordings of that she normally does. So, hang on, there's I think it's the Ohio Citizens one.
I would like to read this in a translated way. Because sometimes Mom writes things. And don't get me wrong, Mom, I love you. But she writes things in such a way that she understands. And I understand. But some other people do not understand.
Okay, go ahead.
So, we're talking about a restart. And Mike DeWine wants to restart the Ohio in the state. And she's like, you got to do it honestly. And actually, this is kind of what this article was about. We all have a duty. We have a responsibility for God. To be honest. To be honest mothers and fathers and leaders. And the question is, at a moment in time like this, do we go back to continue the lie that has been perpetuated for 100 years with FDR? That you can simply print and print and print. This is what we're just talking about.
And made silver and gold illegal.
How about we go back? But go back to a time before the lies were perpetuated over and over and over again.
Can you put it in the background?
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Hang on, let me pull it back up for Leah to read.
Okay, so FDR lied when he said gold coins were illegal, and they took gold. They took people's gold. That was a lie, and it was wrong, and it was illegal. You want to restart the company, the country, or the company? How about we do it, and we can restart better? Nixon lied when he took away everyone's silver coins, calling them no longer money. Is it impossible to be good? Is it impossible to be honest? Is it impossible to raise children based on truth? Let's choose to restart Ohio honestly. It's like a campaign slogan. Gold and silver coins the right way. When she talks about gold and silver coins, what we are talking about, when we say honest money, and bring it down to a reality to you. When you go to make a transaction with someone, what you give them should be worth tomorrow or the next day the same amount that you give them today. And that was the way it was for 200 years. But then when big bankers got together, they decided to print money. And in doing so, that is why you have the 1% and and that huge gap. Because they're constantly skimming the cream off the top because of the inflation, okay? And what your standard of living seems to be high because you're in debt. We're all in debt, okay? Everything is upside down using this fiat money. We have stopped everything. So let us start Ohio without corruption and using silver. And some states have made silver and gold legal tender. Washington, D.C. is a cesspool of corruption. We do not have to continue in a union with them. A union with corruption makes us corrupt. We can keep and make a higher standard. We can be right. The system that we stopped, was it based on the Constitution that clearly states only gold and silver coins can be used for payment as tender, and that is absolutely constitutional. It's in the Constitution. If you want to be a constitutionalist, it's in the Constitution. If you study, you can clearly see anything other than gold and silver is corruption. It's the slavery of the masses. According to Ohio's 1851 Constitution, slavery, even indentured servitude, is against the law. We can set a good example for our children. We as a state, an independent sovereign country, repent, turn to God, stop being corrupted by a fiat monetary system, and start being honest. What about the children? Do you really love them? Do you really care about them? Do you want them to be raised as you were in corruption that leads to immorality? Leads to pain and sickness and fear and worry and indebtedness, slavery to evil people who print the corrupt money or the corrupt crypto. Instead of business or manufacturing, which is slavery to the masses, corruption, running our lives, bossing us around, making us slaves, make Ohio the only state in the union that will not be corrupted. Open Ohio as a farming country, like an Amish country, with only gold and silver can be used as legal tender. Evil will flee Ohio, I think this should be flee. As fast as rats flee a sinking ship. Let us be honest people. The choice is clear. More slavery, more corruption, more evil, more suffering, or end the slavery and corruption. Flip Ohio to the right side. Imagine how many people could have been saved if the Poseidon had survived and flipped to the right side. Ohioans, you don't need this system of the prince and the power of the air to liberate you and set you free to continue to repeat or perpetuate the same lie over and over again. Oh, we need the government to save us from the evil President Wilson, the Federal Reserve Act. We need the government. No. Right here, right now, we can turn to God. We can humble ourselves before God and ask him to forgive us, to heal our minds, our very souls, and heal our land. Start telling the truth. Only gold and silver coins are money. No one can tax our land, our labor, or anything else. Jesus Christ died on the cross and paid the price for our sins on the cross. Jesus Christ liberated us, set us free. Now we live by every word that comes from God. We are free men and women. We are not slaves. We own our land because Jesus gave our land, our labor, our inheritance. They are gifts from God for doing the right thing, for telling the truth. We in Ohio were liberated from the prince of the power of the air by God's almighty power and the gospel of Jesus Christ. And like I said, I know that it's a hard pill to swallow, but what I am seeing is that
there's a good blog
my
on this.
mom
Excellent.
gets these basic ingredients for what life should be.
Right.
And in faith, you see it.
Right.
Okay? So I'm using this electricity, but it doesn't mean that that's God's best, because we know that radiation's coming out of these boxes. Right? They set up a system, and we're all part of the system. But we don't have to continue to be in the system. And by faith, we can change. And it all goes back to the fiat dollar. You don't have to make the changes.
Right.
You ask God to help you make these changes. And we've been doing this for 3 years. And then we see some of these changes being made. And we say, let's go forward. Let's take a step forward.
Take ground.
Take the ground.
We are taking back ground, and it's
All right.
amazing. That's what's happening. You should be encouraged and excited.
Okay.
All right, so today was a really long show, but I'm glad that you guys were here with us. 2.5 hours of jam-packed news.
Yes.
Patriot Gallery, that was awesome. That's from Isaiah58ministries.blogspot.com. There was just a couple typos I'll probably go back and edit tonight, but I'm excited to see what God's doing. We need to pray for those that are in the midst of this, not just those suffering from the illness, but those that are suffering from the tyranny and the effects and the economic loss, like us with no job. Okay? It's not an enjoyable place to be. I get it. I feel you. I'm in it. This is the boat I'm on. We're on the same boat here. So we love you guys. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it is actually the truth. Please like, comment, and subscribe to both of our channels, Mass Faith 3 and Resistance Chicks. Ring the bell so you get notifications every single time we go live. We've got a couple videos. I did a Bible study with Michelle, which is Acts 4. It was
so good.
I got on a tangent near kind of the end, and I feel like it was really powerful. We did a song a day last night with the ukulele and the guitar, which was really fun. And we did a little tour of the deck the other night with, what is it, Earth, Fire, and Water, and Wind.
So check us back here Sunday at 1 for the UK Euro News, guys.
All right. God bless.
I was cold.